of us were into it. But you know what I mean? Like, so that was like an early on thing. We were like, oh, I don't think we're that kind of band. So we kind of were just like, no thanks. And, the shirt went back down, and it was like kind of awkward.
Yeah.
Was there a video of that going on?
I wish.
Yeah, it's grainy probably.
Yeah.
We'll have to
Whoever that
source
was,
it.
we apologize for how that made you feel. But also, like,
It just wasn't.
you had to learn.
We hope you're happy
We
and
can try.
healthy.
We can say no. Yeah.
And then on the flip side, some of the highlights and like, you can't believe this just happened kind of thing.
I mean, I don't know, like.
The Macy's parade with
Yeah.
Ninja Turtles.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's
Tell
like
us
that. It's
about
all
that.
that random stuff that you like watch as a kid, and then you're actually doing it. Like we did Dick Clark Rockin' New Year's Eve in Times Square, where we did the Macy's Day Parade,
And that was both in the same year, right?
Ninja Turtles. Yeah, and so it's like just bizarre stuff like that. I mean, playing.
Yeah, I mean, playing MTV World Stage in Malaysia was our first like big international show. That was like we had a police escort to the show, and like there were thousands of people.
And we're
it
so
was
self-deprecating. We're like, we don't need cops to
Right.
like escort
Who are
us.
we?
And, like,
No one cares.
Yeah, it's just stuff like that, and then it's such a gift too to like look out at shows and see faces from 15 years ago still coming, and so that's also a pinch me moment. Like people care that much about our crappy little band. No, we're not crappy. We're good.
Our incredible band.
Our incredible band.
Well, we are so grateful that you're here today and took the time to do this for us and all of our listeners, and we love what you do.
Yes.
And congratulations on this latest album and all the success.
Thank you so much for having us.
You're welcome. And we'll do our final giveaway after this final song that they take us out with. And it is Neon Trees. What's this last one?
We'll do Everybody Talks.
All right.
Hey baby, won't you look my way? I can be your new addiction. Hey baby, what you gotta say? All you're giving me is fiction. I'm a sorry sucker and this happens all the time. I found out that everybody talks, everybody. It started with a whisper, and that was when I kissed her. And then she made my lips say, I could hear the chit-chat. Oh, take me to your love shack. Mama's always got her back to rec when everybody talks back. Hey honey, you could be my drug, you could be my new prescription. Too much could be an overdose. All this trash talk making me itchy. No, my, everybody talks, everybody talks too much. It started with a whisper, and that was when I kissed her. And then she made my lips hurt. I could hear the chit-chat. Take me to your love shack. Mama's always got her back to rec when everybody talks back. Ooh, I never thought I'd live to see the day when everybody's words got in the way. Hey sugar, show me all your love. All you're giving me is affection. Hey sugar, what you gotta say? It started with a whisper, and that was when I kissed her. And then she made my lips hurt. I could hear the chit-chat. Oh yeah, take me to your love shack. Mama's always got a back to rec when everybody talks back. Everybody talks, everybody talks, everybody
what are we going to do? Well, there's a few, but now I'm holding a different guitar, so we'll probably do one of two. Let's do Another Way, which is so we're playing songs off of this new album, Beacons, that came out a little while ago, and we're in the middle of this big Beacons tour. The first disc is all what we're calling Americana, which is this electric, that word can mean almost
There's
everything.
There's a big umbrella there.
Yeah, pretty big umbrella, but we're playing some bluesier stuff. And again, we're coming from bluegrass. Disc 2 is all the bluegrass stuff with Jerry Douglas and Sam Bush and that stuff. But we're going to close. This is the song that ends the Americana side. And just say 2 words about it real quick.
Well, for the last couple years, Eric and I just kept talking to each other, and I think talking to everybody I know, and just this term, we just kept saying these same words to each other, which is there's got to be another way for us all to live here on Earth and get along better. There's just got to be another way than what's happening right now, because it's just so awful for all of us. So many of us are in pain and hurting and divided. So this idea of there's got to be another way. So we wrote a song called Another Way, and we hope it touches you.
All right. Thank
Indeed.
you all. Thank you all
Thanks
very
for
much.
having us.
Thanks so much, guys.
Sounds great.
I'm going to count us all in. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Tell you which one, 'cause I've been turned around here since the wheels first been spun. It's never made much difference, 'cause you end up where you need. Any old place to hang my hat is home sweet home to me. I've sold myself stories, poured wishes down the well, convinced that this is how it ought to be. Been hunting my own footprints, chasing my own tail, lost in the same old reverie. I couldn't call it by name. It's high, low, by the carrion crow. In the end, it's all the same. You can stroll the beaten path and fly the raven's wing, but as long as you're a rambling, well, you'll have some song to sing. We marched in the cities, buried our heads in the sand. We had chosen sides and staked our claims. But isn't it a pity this eternal fight for land? Isn't it every time we made a change? Oh, hard times ain't here to stay. Our sky's gonna clear someday. There's always another way, yeah. We've all got to find another way. fly the raven's wing. But as long as you're a rambling, you'll have some song to sing. We've marched in the cities, buried our heads in the sand. We have chosen sides and staked our claim. Isn't it a pity to see eternal fight for land? Isn't it?
She's been acknowledged nationally for her research. What do you do?
Good evening, everyone. Today is September 11, 2005, Thursday. Welcome to today's special board meeting where we will be convening a joint committee. Mr. Treasurer, can we call the roll?
Yes. Vice President Adair.
Present.
President Cole.
Here.
Ms. Ingles.
Here.
Dr. Pierce is absent. Ms. Reyes. Mr. Simmons.
Present.
Ms. Vera. You have quorum.
All right, we have quorum.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. Before we go into some of the pageantry of the meeting, I think it's really important to make just a brief statement. Today is a very special day, one that's horrid in the history of our country, but one that is special nonetheless. I'd like today's remarks, the 24th anniversary of September 11th attacks. This is a day that forever has changed our country and even the world, reminding us of the strength of unity and the reliance of the human spirit. I invite us all to take a brief moment of silence to honor the lives lost, the families forever changed, and the first responders and service members, and also our military service men and women. I'd like to have a moment of silence to acknowledge them. I thank you for that. Now we'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
Now, we will walk through an adoption of the agenda. And first and foremost, also, let me thank everyone for being here. It is an absolute delight and pleasure to see how many community people there are as committee members, but also as folks in our audience who could have been anywhere doing any number of things that you felt important to do, but made the time to be here to do the work that we're all engaged in together. So I just want to thank each and every one of you for being here with us this evening. So before we adopt the agenda, tonight we will begin with section 3.0 in the joint committee session that deals with Career Academy presentation. We'll receive a presentation on that from Dr. Chapman. We'll then walk into 3.2. That section is the review of the 5-year forecast to be convened by Treasurer Cook. And then the administration will go further into committee work between ETRM and AFAC to convene 3.3, which is a conversation on transportation cost models and academic impacts, as well as 3.4, which will then be facts about enrollment and lottery. We'll then adjourn. There will be no executive session or no further action. Everybody will leave. In addition to that, housekeeping, there are trash can, food is available. Please feel free to grab as much as you'd like. For those who want to warm up their food, there is a kitchen in the hallway here. Inside that kitchen is a microwave. So if you like to heat up your food, please feel free to heat up your food in the microwave. That is available for anyone who needs to use it. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
So moved, and is there a second? Second, call the roll.
Ms. Ingles.
Yes.
Ms. Reyes.
Yes.
Mr. Simmons.
Yes.
Ms. Vera.
Yes.
Vice President Adair.
Yes.
President Cole.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, we have adopted the agenda. We will move on into our joint committee session. We will go into Career Academy presentation. Dr. Chapman, thank you for being with us tonight.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, tonight, I would like to share how we are reimagining education for our students with the academies of Columbus City Schools, creating smaller, supportive learning communities where every student is known, challenged, and inspired. We are strengthening the connection between classrooms and the real world, ensuring that our students have opportunities to prepare for college, careers, and life. That means access to internships, mentorships, industry credentials, and hands-on learning with the region's leading employers. And most importantly, this work is about providing an opportunity for each of our students who deserve to graduate with the confidence, skills, and experiences to lead in whatever pathway they choose. Our vision for Columbus City Schools is rooted in creating small, safe, and supportive learning environments inside of each of our high schools. Through college and career-connected learning, students engage in a career and college-themed pathway that prepares them not just for graduation, but for success in both post-secondary education and the workforce. Nationally, this model has 3 proven components. First, small learning communities that foster a strong sense of belonging among students. Second, learning through a career lens where academics are tied to real-world challenges. And third, business and community engagement, ensuring that our students are connected to mentors, internships, and opportunities beyond the classroom. Together, these components create the foundation for our students to thrive and lead. This work aligns with the National Career Academy Coalition, also known as NSAC, which has been supporting schools since 1996. The vision of NSAC is to partner with schools and communities to design sustainable and transformational academies, preparing all students for college, career, and life. Columbus City Schools is proud to bring this proven framework to scale for our students. This year marks the launch of our freshman academies at 4 of our high schools, Beechcroft, East, Walnut Ridge, and West High School. The first step in a phased expansion that would ultimately reach 10 schools. In 2026, we add 2 more, and in 2027, 4 additional schools. This phased approach enables us to strengthen staff training, prepare spaces, and deepen employer partnerships, ensuring every rollout is strong from the start. This year, at the 4 high schools where we've launched this strategy, we have already seen an increase in student enrollment at 3 of the campuses, or 4 of the campuses. But at East High School, the increase has been by 48 students. At West High School, 2 students. Walnut Ridge High School, 134 students. And Beechcroft High School, 26 students. Our academies are built on a strong foundation, guided by a set of essential elements that make this model work for students. First, every student begins with freshman seminar. This seminar helps 9th graders develop the habits, skills, and confidence they need to adjust to high school. It sets the foundation for success in their chosen academy pathways. Second, we prioritize intentional business engagement. Employers are directly involved in shaping and planning the creation of work-based learning experiences. Our slides will catch up with us, but we'll keep going. These partnerships provide mentorship, real-world expertise, and help align curriculum with workforce needs. Third, our model emphasizes interdisciplinary instruction. Teachers from different subject areas collaborate regularly. Students see how academics connect across the disciplines and to future careers. We've created a defined college and career readiness continuum with clear benchmarks that guide student progress from freshman year through graduation. It also ensures that students graduate academically prepared, credentialed, and competitive for the workforce. We've built in a student leadership structure as well. Students are empowered to take ownership of their learning and opportunities that lead to build confidence and real leadership skills. And finally, we provide strong support for the 8th to 9th grade transition. We provided targeted supports to help students move smoothly from middle school into high school, one of the most important transitions in their journey. And it also ensures that students enter high schools feeling confident, connected, and ready. For our incoming ninth graders, our ninth graders will start their journey in a freshman academy. And again, we have started and launched this strategy at 4 of our high schools this year. This is the foundation of college and career-connected learning. This design gives incoming students the chance to adjust to the expectations and routines of high school in a supportive and structured environment, be part of a small learning community where they see the same teachers and peers every day. That consistency helps students feel connected and builds a sense of belonging. They also engage in team-based activities that develop collaboration, problem-solving, and personal leadership skills. They also have opportunities to explore their interests before they commit to a pathway for grades 10 through 12. Every student also takes a freshman seminar course, which focuses on study habits, time management, digital literacy, and goal setting, skills that help them succeed not only in high school, but also in college and career pathways. The first year is about building confidence by providing students with the tools, relationships, and support they need from day one. We set them up to thrive in the academy that they choose. No matter which academy a student chooses, their learning is designed to connect directly to the real world. Courses are tied to authentic challenges that local companies and industries are working to solve. This makes learning meaningful and relevant for them. Learning happens inside classrooms and in the community. Students are not only doing the work in their classrooms, they are out visiting work sites, problem solving with mentors, and applying their skills in real-world situations. Work-based learning is central. Students job shadow professionals, complete internships, and participate in capstone projects that let them demonstrate their skills in authentic ways. The goal is that every student leaves their academy prepared academically with the practical skills, workplace experience, and career awareness to take their next step with confidence. Meaningful partnerships with businesses, colleges, and community organizations strengthen the academies. Local businesses and employers play an active role in shaping curriculum, mentoring students, and opening doors for them. Colleges and universities create pathways to higher education through dual enrollment and campus visits. Nonprofits and community organizations provide support and enrichment that helps students see their potential. This network of partnerships ensures students have access to work-based learning, career exploration, real-world projects, internships, and capstones. When schools and communities align, students benefit from opportunities that would not exist otherwise. And at Beechcroft High School, there are 2 academies, the Academy of Engineering and Design and the Academy of Entrepreneurship and Sports Medicine. And within each academy, there are centers. So for the Academy of Engineering and Design, there's a Center for Engineering, and then there's a Center for Media Arts. For the Academy of Entrepreneurship and Sports Medicine, there's the Center for Entrepreneurship and the Center for Sports Medicine. At East High School, there are 2 pathways. The Academy of Health Sciences, which includes the Center of Health Sciences, and the Academy of Media Production, which includes the Center of Arts and Communication. At Walnut Ridge High School, there's the Academy of Smart Automation and Transportation, which includes a Center for Smart Automation and a Center of Advanced Air Mobility, as well as the Academy of Communications and Logistics, which includes the Center of Communications and the Center of International Logistics. The academies for West High School include the Academy of Engineering Technologies, which includes the Center of Engineering and the Center for Information Technology. There's also the Academy of Marketing and Life Science which includes the Center of Marketing and the Center of Farming and Innovation. Our end game is clear, ensuring that every CCS student will graduate with a pathway forward. Some will choose to enroll in college or pursue post-secondary training. Some will enlist in the armed forces to serve our country and build new skills. Others will step directly into sustainable careers with growth opportunities right here in Columbus. The key is that no student leaves us without options. Every graduate will walk across the stage with a diploma in one hand and the confidence, credentials, and experiences they need to succeed in the other. Thank you. Good job. Thank you.
All right.
And I also would like to acknowledge the support of Megan Noble, who has been leading this strategy and very instrumental in helping to really launch these, the Academies of Columbus.
Okay. Round of applause. Let's give our team a hand. Thank you for this. This is a wonderful beginning of a trajectory that not only brings alignment to the district in a way that we want to maximize potential of human beings, the adults responsible for kids and kids themselves. So thank you for this. I look forward to seeing how this unfurls. At this point in time, I want to also make sure that I want to open this for questions. I want to open the floor for questions. And if there's anyone who has a question, please feel free to raise your hand. I will acknowledge you. And what I want to make sure we do at the same time is ask a question. I want to make sure we ask questions, all right? We want to make every bit of time we can for that. All right, Mr. Robinson, Dr. Robinson.
Mrs. Superintendent, thank you for that presentation. It was wonderful. Matter of fact, it gave me goosebumps on that last slide that said the end game. When does this start? I'm saying, does it engage students in the 8th grade, 7th grade, 9th grade? When does these academies actually start engaging students?
So with the academies, when we're thinking about our feeder patterns, ideally this work beginning as early as elementary school, where we're exposing our students to careers. As early as pre-K, students are learning about different careers. In middle school, they have more exploration opportunities. So they're learning about the various pathways to the high-demand, high-skilled pathways within the city of Columbus and our region. And then by the time they are beginning to transition from 8th to 9th grade, they are actually making informed choices and decisions. The premise here is that we can't wait until our students graduate to begin introducing them to the career pathways and the high-skilled, high-demand jobs that are available to them in our city and our region. We have to prepare them for those opportunities well before they get to high school. And so this is a step in that direction to ensure that all of our students have access, have opportunity to really deepen those skills while they're in high school.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. We have another question, and Dr. Chapman, please feel free to, as you're answering these questions, I'd love it if we could tie your vision overall to the answers to these questions. Thank you for that. We'll go down there, and then we'll go to Board Member Ingalls.
Thank you, Dr. Chapman. What, if any, opportunities in the career academies exist for students, special education students or students with disabilities?
Thank you for asking that question. So our students with disabilities or our students with exceptional needs, we consider lots of our students have a need, but students with varying learning styles, they are all a part of these academies and have experiences and opportunities that are centered around their needs. So it is inclusive of all students. We're not excluding anyone. So students who may need more time to learn English, students who may be gifted or have an exceptionality in one subject area, students who may have an IEP, students who may have a 504 plan. We already have a template for what this looks like. Most of our we have several programs that exist right now in the district. They are work-based learning experiences for our students with exceptionalities, and they are thriving. We have a partnership with some of our students. They're working in our food production center, and some of our students work outside of the district, and those are students with exceptionalities, and they are doing an exceptional job and remind us every day of why we should be providing this experience for every child, and that we should be making sure that these are not experiences that happen by chance. We are designing the system to ensure that every student has these type of opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Board Member Ingalls.
How are the specific programs chosen for each school, and how do you see that developing, if at all, as we go through this phase-in process?
So that's a great question. One of the ways that we're really building on the existing program in the schools and building out the pathways. So for example, at East High School, there's a Health Sciences Academy. There have been health science programming at East High School. We think about the location of East High School. Ohio State Hospital is right in the backyard, and so it makes perfect logical sense in terms of the need as well as the access and opportunity for those work-based learning experiences. So we think about existing program. We know that we have really worked really hard to expand CTE programming in our high schools. So now we're building out the existing CTE programs to also add career pathways that really make sense and build on the assets and the talents that already exist at the school, including the skill sets of our teachers, because we have teachers that are interested in these areas, so they're there and they're saying, give me more. I want to serve more students. I want to support more students. And so it's really been more of an organic process of thinking about how do we expand existing pathways to make sure that, again, more students have access to them.
Thank you for that. Yes, sir, please.
Dr. Chapman, I'm curious about the procedures of regarding unbalanced interest or disproportional enrollment in academies. Is there a point where students are asked to change their selection, and if so, how would that happen? And how do you, with that, gauging the selection of the different academies, prepare for the management of resources in either academy?
Mm-hmm. So we really want the students to have choice, and so that's why we have the academies, but there's also centers within the academy. We really want the students to be able to choose the pathway that makes sense for them. All of these strategies and these pathways have to be rooted in student agency. This isn't us choosing for them what they want for themselves. The students have to choose the pathway that resonates for them. They have to be able, the whole experience is about them being able to see themselves in these careers. And that's those work-based learning experiences and providing them with those experiences outside of the classroom helps make much more informed decisions in high school, so that when they graduate and when they decide to enroll in a 2-year, a 4-year, or go right into the workforce, hopefully they know exactly what they want to do, but if they don't, they also know what they don't want to do. And so those are experiences that when I was going to school, I had to figure that out on my own. I had to figure that out while I was already in higher ed or in working and having various jobs after high school. And so these are experiences, we're wanting to shape those experiences so that it guides based on their interests. And they're also, they will also have access to interest inventories where they get to learn what their skills are, their natural innate skills, and that helps make more informed decisions about the pathways or the types of jobs or careers that would lend themselves well to based on their talents. So they can certainly change their mind and decide that they would like to be a part of a different academy, but they'll have choice and agency.
Are there any additional questions before we move forward? Down there? Oh, yes, yes, okay, two people.
Congratulations. I think we got it right. The schools that you picked, it's great that you have the teachers on board and the agency there, because that's your key factor there, to help guide these students through what, the interest surveys and everything that needs to happen in order for this plan to work. So congratulations.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, okay, I thought you had a question as well. Yes, sir.
Okay, I just want to come back to the previous question. So I pick a pathway, I think I like it 10th grade, realized by the end of 10th grade, didn't like it. Do you think that's a great learning experience, by the way? Because I totally love figuring that out earlier in life. But is there a point at which I might have to switch schools if the school doesn't offer what I'm looking for?
Well, so for example, there could be a scenario where a student would say, I'm at East, I'm in the health science pathway. I would rather be in the engineering pathway. I've learned a lot about medical science, and this is really not my jam, right? So that could be an option, because remember that freshman experience and that freshman seminar, that's going to be 1 year, no choices. 1 year of learning about all the pathways. And so they'll have an opportunity to learn. They're going to be taking their interest inventory. They're going to be learning more about themselves as a learner, and then they'll have an opportunity to make those decisions. So again, we have to lift up the student agency piece. Columbus City Schools has been very successful with implementing career and technical education, CTE programming. Our students are performing off the charts in CTE. What we've learned is that our students don't want to leave their home school to go to another school to participate in CTE. And what we've also learned is that every student wants those work-based learning experiences. And so this is our shift to think about how we provide more experiences for more students, more access at the neighborhood school, so that there's more students and more families can have access to it.
Yes, ma'am, and then I'll go to Board Member Vera.
Maybe. Thanks. Dr. Chapman, will you remind us about how many students are enrolled in CTE programs in Columbus City Schools at this time?
About 11,500.
Okay, so about a quarter, about a fourth, between a fourth and a fifth of students? Thank you.
Board Member Vera.
Thank you, Chair Cole. Dr. Chapman, I know, I just want to get understanding, I know we have amazing matriculation coaches that monitor our students and just our traditional programming. Can you talk a little bit about how are we going to monitor the effectiveness once they transition from that first freshman year into sophomore, junior, and senior? Is that then an added marker for the present matriculation coaches, or is this a separate process that we are implementing to really assess if these are the right programs or the programs being rolled out? What is our process around monitoring?
So when we think about the work of our matriculation teams, that work will continue to be a central core part of high school success. Every student, whether they're an academy, a CTE program, a center, or not, they have to graduate. That's non-negotiable. These strategies, the academy strategy, is really another way to keep kids engaged, to keep our kids wanting to come to school every day, to reduce disruptions to school. Why? Because they are choosing a pathway of their choice that they are saying, yes, I'm excited about engineering. I'm excited about health science. I want to be a nurse. I want to be a nurse practitioner. I get to work with a nurse practitioner. I got to be at school tomorrow because I'm going on an experience with my mentor, and I'm going to have a job shadowing experience. These are the types of experiences, again, that we've had a lot of success with many of our students across the district for years. And so we're providing more work-based learning experiences, or career-connected learning experiences that ensure our students have agency. They want to come to school. They stay in school. Their learning is more meaningful because it's not just connected to what they're learning as a ninth grader or what they need to learn to graduate, but it's what they want to learn so that we're continuing to harness their hopes and dreams for where they want to be once they graduate. So it's giving them more goals that really sets them up not only for success now, but success later. And so the work of the matriculation teams, does it stop? Absolutely not.
Right.
When we think about how we measure success, we will be measuring success again by the number of credentials that our students are earning in addition to credits. Credits don't go away. They still have to earn credits as a 9th grader, as a 10th grader, as an 11th grader, as a 12th grader in order to be on track to graduate. But our students should also absolutely have every opportunity and access to graduate not only with a diploma, but also with credentials. And so when we think about engagement, we think about attendance, we think about matriculation, and the number of students who, when we start with our freshman academies, the number of those 9th graders who transition to 10th grade. It's not automatic that those 9th graders transition to 10th grade because they have to earn the credits. And so we'll immediately at the end of mid-year, we'll be able to determine how successful is this freshman academy. Are the kids staying together as a cohort? And then they're matriculating to 10th grade, they're matriculating to 11th grade. We already have those benchmarks for matriculation from 9th grade to 10th grade, and that's an area that we have to work on, and this is a strategy that's gonna help us add more value and more meaningful opportunities for the students based on their interests. When our students are right now, typical high school experience, they go to an English class, they transition to a math class, a science class, social studies. That learning is not connected. It's not based on a theme, a thematic approach. When the students are in the pathway, an engineering pathway, English will be taught through the lens of engineering. Math will be taught through the lens of engineering. They're going into each class and I'm gonna be an engineer. How does the math support my goal of becoming an engineer? I can talk to an engineer, I can work with the engineer, I can shadow an engineer, I'm gonna go onto the job site, I'm gonna have experience. It really shapes and reimagines that whole secondary experience in a new and different way that I believe sets our students up for success today as well as for tomorrow.
Thank you. And I only have one quick follow-up question. I was looking at the phased approach, and you have, phase right now, phase 1 is 4, phase 2 is 2 additional high schools, and then phase 3 is 4 high schools. So is this an indication of when you think about reimagining the district, is this the number of high schools you're hoping to keep us within, or do you envision there being more phases?
So thank you, Board Member Vera, for that question. When we designed this strategy, we were thinking about the future of our district. Right now, we have 21 high schools. We already know as a district that 21 high schools for the number of high school students that we have is too many, right? That's not something that we stumbled upon yesterday. We have done several facility master planning projects in years past where that has already been determined based on our enrollment. And so when we think about 10 high schools, we were thinking about 10 large comprehensive high schools. This is the type of robust programming that we would be able to offer at 10 of our high schools, not at 21. This is not a strategy that we'd be able to implement at a high school that has 300 students, right? And so this is an opportunity, again, if we are able to do the work that we need to do, when we talk about realignment, then we are able to align all of our resources around more robust programming in fewer schools, providing our students with more opportunities for them to be successful in K-12 and post-secondary as well.
Hold on just a moment, Board Member Simmons.
Thank you, President Cole. Dr. Chapman, I just had a few questions. How were the 4 schools selected, and then how will the 6 schools subsequently be selected?
So when we started this strategy, we were meeting with the school leaders, and really we wanted to make sure that these were campuses that were ready for adding a new strategy or thinking differently about the work. And so this was thinking about the capacity of the staff, the interest of the staff. These are schools, anyone knows, Northland has had a strong engineering program for years. This didn't happen overnight. And so they have dedicated, committed staff that are ready to really lean in, engage fully in really rethinking about how they provide instruction for their students. So there's a readiness and a willingness to embrace a strategy like this. And there's also a already identified commitment to engage in more professional learning. All of the Freshman Academy teachers have participated in training over the summer so that they could be ready for the launch this new school year. And so they've shown the willingness. Their whole team has come out and said, yes, sign us up. We're excited about this. This is going to energize me professionally. It's going to energize me personally, and we're excited about that. So we're really trying to build on the assets at each one of our schools and continue to deepen and strengthen those opportunities.
Thank you. And then you mentioned enrollment was increasing at those 4 buildings. Are you able to tell us where those students are coming from? Is it intra-district transfers? Is it students who are new to the district or returning to the district?
I don't have that data in front of me,
Okay.
but we can check.
Thank you. And then I just had one last technical question. On the slides for each school with the where it lists the different centers, are those courses the students will be taking, or what do those initial bullet points mean?
So some of them are courses and experiences, but it's through the lens, and it's also through the credentials that they'll have an opportunity to earn. The engineering pathway, we're highlighting the credentials that the students will have an opportunity to earn, as well as health sciences as well.
Thank you, Dr. Chapman.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you for that question. We'll take one more.
Can you speak to whether or not general employability skills are being taught in these programs, and if so, how is that happening? Is that like a separate class? Is it integrated into some of the courses that they're taking? How does that work?
It's integrated into everything. And so they absolutely have those experiences, like in the Freshman Academy, and also in all of the courses as they're earning those credentials. Those are baked into the credentials that the students earn, because when the students earn those credentials, whether they're in a academy course or a CTE program, that when they graduate with that credential, they can go right into the workforce. And so that credential, again, they're earning credentials and skills that I didn't have access to when I was in high school. These were classes that I learned in college, like, Adobe, Lean Six Sigma. We have some folks on our staff that are learning that right now, right? And so our high school students are learning these skills and will have these credentials when they graduate.
Thank you for that question. Mr. Kennedy.
Dr. Chapman, this is a quick question just on accountability. Who drives the success of this? Is it the administrator, the principal coach, the area superintendent? Who's ultimately responsible for driving the success of these academies?
So the technical answer would be leadership, right? But the real answer here is our entire Columbus community. This is not a strategy that we can implement without our community. Because otherwise we'd be teaching from our own experiences. We don't have engineers that are in our classroom. We need the entire community, the business community, the health community, we need them to open the doors so that our students can learn side by side. Business and industry leaders, and that's their classroom experience once a week. We need the business community to open their doors so that our students will have those work-based learning experiences. And so it's a shared accountability. Without those invitations, opportunities, our students will not have those experiences that they need to make this learning come to life. And so when I think of it as a commitment from our community that says this is absolutely the experience that every student in Columbus City Schools deserves, and we're going to make it happen.
Thank you for that question.
Okay. With the Academies of Columbus City Schools, how, if at all, will it align with the existing Career Center programs?
That's a great question. So this is not in place of our Career Center programs. This is in addition to. We can do both. It's both and. And so what we have learned is that there's a significant demand from our students for career-connected learning. They're saying, I want more. This is awesome. This is amazing. Now I want to come to school. Now I want to stay in school. Now I want to learn more about this career. And so what we are certainly thinking about is how we provide more of those experiences in our neighborhood schools. So we talked earlier, we have 21 high schools. We have 2 career centers. So essentially, if a student was interested in a CTE pathway, they would have to travel. They would have to leave their home school to go to downtown Fort Hays or Columbus Downtown High School to engage in that type of learning. We have slowly been transitioning and migrating the CTE programs to the high schools. And now we're expanding that, so it's not just for some students at each high school, it's for all students at the high school. And so students can continue to matriculate with their peers, they can stay at their home school, they won't have a disruption in their day, and they won't have to transition and travel. For some students, it's far, it's not in their backyard, to travel to another site. So it's both and. We absolutely have valuable programming at Fort Hays that we're going to continue to build on and expand. We have valuable programming that we want to also expand and provide at more of our neighborhood schools. So it's both and.
Thank you.
Board Member Reyes?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Chapman. Can you talk a little bit about where we've seen success with this model and how we stay connected to that success?
Where we in CCS have seen success?
Either within us, or is there another district that's doing it, where we're modeling this?
So I would say, there are several other communities that have invested in this strategy. And I say communities because it's truly a partnership with the community. The districts or communities that have been successful with this strategy, they've been successful because everyone, they stack hands and they say, this is our commitment to our children. It's not singularly or solely a K-12 strategy. And so we've looked at models, we've visited and looked at models in Boston, we've looked at models in Nashville, we've looked at models in Indianapolis, we've looked at models in Louisville. They have been implementing these strategies for over a decade. So it's not a strategy that just started yesterday. They have experienced and seen tremendous results from the partnership, the collaboration. Again, not just K-12, but the entire community has invested in this strategy, and they've been very successful.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for these series of questions. Before we move to the next presentation, it's important for you to understand why we're having this presentation and discussion tonight on this specific issue. You all are well aware of the $50 million cut that we have that we pushed forward, but what you're getting a deeper sense of is now what is the direction academically that we're taking that helps us further opportunity for students, and not just to 1 or 2 buildings, but make it scalable throughout the district. Here's some important facts for you to know. One is that in more than a 2,600 graduating cohort of students, I want to say nearly 700 of them were CTE students that earned 15,000 or more micro-credentials that made them workforce ready. Here's another fact that's also important to understand about this particular investment in this group of students, is that they tend to not only show up to school, but show up to school on time, show up to school ready and consistently. This is a graduation cohort of 90% or better. 9 out of every 10 rumps, behinds, butts, buttocks are in the seat prepared to learn. Forgive me for my use of colloquialism, but I think it's really important to make this relatable in the greatest sense. The other most important in closing, community partner, stakeholder, are our families. Are our families. how much they are aware of this opportunity, aware of its immense potential for students and maybe even some of themselves if they're 21 and under. Because we're compulsory age here in Columbus City Schools, 5 years old to 21 years old. So there's immense opportunity here for students. This is a direct course of investment that we want to, at this portion of the marathon, which is midway through closure, where we see the opportunity and potential to make winners, continue to make winners out of our kids. So I want to take that and move forward to our next presentation, which will be by Mr. Treasurer Ryan Cook.
Why are they loading those slides? You want to? I've got it. You're good. You think there's pressure that goes into a 5-year. I'll tell you, when Dr. Chapman has confidence in you to run that slide and the clicker freezes, that's pressure, let me tell you.
There you go.
All right.
And just so you know, there'll be opportunity for further questions as we move forward. But I want to make sure I'm watching the clock as well.
Yes.
So if I don't go with you, please charge it to my head and the clock and not my heart.
Yeah, thank you. So tonight we're going to do a high-level overview of the 5-year forecast I presented to committee before on this in the interest of time and how some of these other pieces connect with the $50 million cut. We're going to stick at a high level here tonight. I'll be presenting at our board meeting on Tuesday. We'll have much greater detail. But in the interest of time, I want to make sure we cover what we need to here. It's working. All right. Maybe I spoke too soon. There we go. Okay, so this is our first look at the October 2025 forecast. Previously, we presented on the May 5-year forecast, and that was before the board took action on a $50 million budget reduction. With that being said, traditionally, when you have a budget reduction on a 5-year forecast, you integrate that into different lines: salaries, benefits, supplies, et cetera. We haven't done that yet because the board is still working with Dr. Chapman to finalize and formalize where those cuts are going to go. So as a treasurer, I didn't want to paint the narrative of putting 75% of it in salaries, 25% of it in supplies. It's important that Dr. Chapman and her team do that critical work to arrive at where they feel those cuts need to be targeted. Once those decisions are made towards December, we will update this forecast again in February per statute, and it will reflect where those cuts fall within those various buckets. So having level set on that, here with the October 25 forecast, our cash balance has shifted to a positive situation through fiscal year 2030. We previously had challenges where that was not going to be the case. That is the result of the $50 million reduction that the board has approved that is sustained and ongoing. I would like to highlight, we began deficit spend last year, and this cut does not actually fix that structural deficit. Rather, it begins to close that gap that we've seen between revenue and expenses. So, for example, this line at the bottom is our cash balance. It reflects the $50 million cut, and we're going to go from a cash balance of approximately $263 million this year and then end in 2030 with $9.3 million in the bank. That's approximately 3 days of a cash reserve. So I would be remiss if I didn't highlight there is still much more work to be done. I know Dr. Chapman, Auditor O'Connor, and myself spent a lot of time this afternoon going through this, having discussions. We know that this is really the first bite of the apple. So we're now beginning to prepare what do then we need to look for in the future after we conclude this. Summary of changes in revenue. We've seen an uptick since May of $19 million in increases. Again, this reflects a new state budget, changes with interest income. I know we had a tremendous amount of discussion around the state budget and what it did or didn't do. I simply want to highlight for you that we have seen since May a $19 million increase in revenue. We knew the state wasn't going to come through, and again, I think that's reflected by these numbers. We haven't seen a $50, $60, $75 million increase. We can talk again about why that's occurring, but we're facing those same inflationary pressures that you have at home. The state is still funding us on those 2022 cost sets. So we're just not seeing that uptick in revenue. On the expenditure side, we see a reduction of $115 million. So again, be mindful here, we've taken out $50 million a year for those 3 years of the new forecast that the state's talking about. But because of those inflationary pressures, it chips away. And so the 150 isn't a true 150. We see it as it caps out. We're projecting inflationary pressure on those. Again, all other revenues, we've got an increase for investment income. There's now discussion the Federal Reserve could cut interest rates. While that's good for the economy and stimulates, while we have $263 million that we can invest and work with, a reduced interest rate environment, again, just reduces the amount of interest income that we're going to receive. So we're facing challenges from a myriad of angles. Another risk factor, we've had a lot of talk around federal government programs. We've got our grants, and then we've got Medicaid receipts. There's a lot of discussion on, is this program even going to continue in the long run? We've received $7.5 million in the past. We've begun to back that down because of the pressure we're seeing at the federal level. So this forecast includes an approximate $1.6 million decrease due to what we've been navigating and following with challenges on the Medicaid front. The district's done a great job prior to even my arrival of going after those dollars to help increase revenue, and now we're seeing that pressure at the federal level where it's being backed down. Again, those are dollars that Dr. Chapman and her team won't have available to deploy as resources in the classroom. Summary of changes on our expenditures. We've updated all of our actuals for FY25, and we've projected them forward. Payroll, utilities, supplies, materials. So we take a look at what did we spend, what is our historical percentage that we need to apply to that to grow it going forward, and we project that out into the future. One of the big things we talked about last November was the annual base increase that we're going to project in the forecast. We just settled our contract with Labor Partners, CEA, and they received a 2.25% increase for fiscal year 26, which is this year. In our forecast, as we project forward, we've held that 1% increase. Again, as I've told our partners at the table, we negotiate in good faith, but we have to put something into the forecast that projects going forward. So we've stayed consistent with that 1% metric in our out years. Non-personnel amounts are revised to agree with our FY26. That's everything but personnel, supplies, materials, consumables, et cetera. And we're projecting that flat, no increases. I know that Dr. Chapman and her team are having a lot of discussions at cabinet level and down on where do we shake the couch cushions, how do we control the things that we can control right now. Non-personnel budget is that. I will give them a lot of credit. Over the last year, we started these discussions in the first of the year, and they've done diligent work to draw that budgetary figure down. We've begun to see that pay off. There's not a lot of fat left on the bone that they can trim with respect to non-personnel. And what I mean by that, I can't present to you in the dark. We have bus fuel that we have to buy, things of that nature. So there's just a certain element that we have to continue to maintain to do business, but they've been diligent in watching that number, and certainly we will continue to be diligent and vigilant on that as we go forward on contracts, et cetera. Transfers out, we've increased to reflect anticipated funds into 035 that the board established at the end of the fiscal year. That's for an extra pay, a 27th pay that is going to hit our books in fiscal year 28. So what we're doing is we're not reserving that cash on our books in the general fund. We're putting that into what I would call a special fund, a savings account, so that those monies are there and we can charge that off without greatly impacting the general fund with an added expense. We're planning ahead for that when it arrives. All other financing uses increased to reflect the inclusion of a $50 million annual board-approved expenditure. And this is what I opened with. There's no great spot to put a rip down on the forecast. Traditionally, you put it in your salaries, your benefits. Again, To defer and allow the superintendent and her team the time necessary to allocate those expenditure reductions appropriately, we placed a single item that makes it easy to view in the forecast right now for October. Again, once those decisions are made and board approved, we will remove it from that line and apply it appropriately throughout the lines in the forecast. But it's important to note, it does reflect the $50 million decrease right now. In conclusion, ongoing risks, pending state and federal budget / litigation. I think there's still a lot of discussion. I know there's a lot of discussion around property tax reform. What does that look like as we go forward? I anticipate continued challenges on school funding. There was a lot of discussion around that cash balance policy. I don't think that's gone away. I don't know what it looks like. Although because of our deficit spend, if the state were to enact that 30% policy, it wouldn't impact us now. I will tell you, with where our fiscal picture is going, I wish that was a problem I had to fight. We're not there yet. We're going to work on rebuilding that and getting on that path to fiscal sustainability. Cash balance as a percentage of our expenditures in 26 is 26% and change. And you can see as we get to 2030, we are just below 1%, even with that $50 million reduction. So it's critical for me to highlight that is merely a start. We still have options. That could include further reductions. That could include attrition as employees choose to leave our district. We just simply don't backfill. Yes, I will acknowledge it's still a reduction, but nobody has to tell anyone you're losing your job. So it's, in my eyes, the least painful option. The other option is increasing revenue. So we have some combinations we can play with here and discussions that we will continue to have at the board table as we go forward. But again, the $50 million reduction is merely a starting point because of our deficit. We're projected, again, over $100 million this year, and then next year we drop down closer to 50. But because of those inflationary pressures that we face, the deficit spend will continue to grow from that reduced 50 million back up into the 70, 71 million in 29 and 30. So again, it kind of highlights those challenges we saw in the budget bill with updating cost sets. Just talked about expenses exceeding revenue, and you can see below on that last little bar graph what our deficit spending actually is. We're north of 100 million projected this year, and again, we're down next year, but then we're back off to the races because of inflationary pressure. I say a lot of times we want to prepare for the storm before it's here. The storm's here, we're preparing. I feel like the $50 million is some of the plywood that's going over the windows so that we can protect academic programs. Now we have to begin to take a look at what are those next levels of protections that we have to deploy to protect academic programs for our students. I know I moved rapidly through that. Questions?
The floor is open for questions. Okay, so I do have a few. All right, sir, go ahead, please.
Yeah, one question I had is, so you're making the go-forward assumption of 1% increase in salary, but have you looked at what happens if it continues to be 2.5? Because, I mean, understandably, people are also looking at home to make sure that they're, not getting hit by inflation, right?
I have. We run a myriad of scenarios all the time. I've stuck with the one because that's what the board approved. I don't like to unilaterally just come in. I aim for consistency in the forecast, and I think if the board directed a percentage change like we did last winter, that's when I'll make that. But yeah, we are constantly analyzing this. One of the slides on Tuesday that I'll talk about at the board meeting, we are bound by what they call the 412 certificate. So there's a maximum that we can certify by law based on what the numbers are in the forecast, and a huge component of that is the salary piece. It's approximately, it's north of 80% of our budget spend. So yes, we look at it all the time. We model it. I've got spreadsheets, but we have to maintain certification. So when we approve a contract, the board president, the superintendent, and the treasurer have to certify with that 412 certificate. Funds are there. And what that means is if we certify a contract where we legally don't have the monies to pay it, we are personally liable with a $10,000 fine each. That's in Ohio Revised Code. So we're on the hook, so to speak, to make sure that when we conduct business, any contract over $500,000 requires that certification. So yes, that's a long answer, but we constantly model it. We look at it. It is a massive part of our budget, and we like to keep where are we at, where are we going, what are those what-ifs that could arise.
Yeah, it makes sense and totally understand. I think one follow-up question too is, have we explored any alternatives where we continue to offer the same level of benefits at a reduced cost? So like a couple things that come to mind are looking to all the other schools in Central Ohio to get an even larger healthcare conglomerate, right? Looking to offer maybe, I know my wife's former employer got rid of PPOs and did HSAs, but then fully funded people's HSAs so that it wasn't really a difference at home, but the premiums on the employer side were there. So I'm curious, like, what options like that we've explored to try to figure this out.
Yes, we've had discussions. It was one of the opening things I brought up last fall when I walked into the district, when we started to have discussions around what can we look at as we meet with our labor partners. Much like every other school, we have a health insurance committee that works in conjunction with our partners. So they make those changes. They are currently and have been flipping over stones to see what can we do to affect change in that regard. So I know that committee does a lot of work on benefit structures, co-pays, PPO versus fully funded versus HSA. One of the things we're doing is allowing employees, we're going to max our flex spending account now at the maximum IRS levels. I know Dr. Chapman and I had a quick discussion on that tonight. Again, because we recognize that there is pressure there on both sides of the equation, at the board level and the employee level. So that committee's constantly evaluating that. And yes, I think there is work that needs to be done, but it has to be in conjunction with our labor partners.
Absolutely. Thank you for those questions. Board Member Reyes.
Yes, he actually asked a couple of the questions, but, and I thank you, Treasurer Cook, making sure that people understand that even if we look at any and all options, we do have to have agreement with our labor partners before we can move forward, because it does have impact on them. You talked a little bit about what percentage of our budget goes to salaries. Can you talk a little bit about what, how the rest of our budget is allocated, so that people can kind of understand? Because a lot of times we get, well, why don't you sell this, or why don't you do this, or why don't you do that, and kind of help people understand where our money goes, and give us a dollar amount what it might take for us to function 1 year.
Yeah, so in terms of our budget scope and size, our general fund's approximately $988 million. Let's just say $1 billion for the sake of argument. 800 million, let's just take it 80% just to keep it simple. 800 million is our salary and benefit cost of that budget. So the remaining 200 million funds things like supplies, material, curriculum, Chromebooks, our transportation, you beat me to it. I think that's on the agenda tonight. Transportation, bus fuel, our electric bill with AEP. So when you think about what we can and can't maneuver around to reduce what I call that large Titanic, you don't turn it on a dime, because we really have 20% that we're playing with. And again, we have to get students to school. We have to heat our facilities. We have to cool our facilities. We have to have the electric bill on. We have to make sure that our students that are even in any program, not just CTE, have Chromebooks, et cetera. And those are expensive items. I know I beleaguer the point, but that's why that budget bill and that fair school funding formula is so critical, because I think we would all agree the cost of all of that stuff hasn't gone down. The cost to adequately educate and equip a student is expensive and continues to rise. Yes, I think it's important we try to balance our budget, but we also have to educate students. And that takes a village and requires community investment, which they've been generous in the past with our levies. That's why it's frustrating that the state continues to push more and more and more and more on the backs of our local taxpayers by not funding the fair school funding formula. So it's $1 billion budget, 800 million salaries and benefits. Critical component. We're in the people business. 200 million is the stuff. But it's the stuff that literally makes the wheels go round on that bus that gets our students here. So does that help?
It does. Can you also talk a little bit about what we get, what's the dollar amount per student, and then how it's impacted on October 1st?
Yeah, so count week, so it's students in seats. I'll quote Board President Cole a few
Students
minutes
in
ago.
seats, yeah.
There we go, students in seats. So again, that's what drives our revenue. Obviously, at the end of the day, we have students here. From the state level, we get approximately 4,000 and change from a student. So again, I'm gonna point to that 80-20 model. We hear a lot about, oh, Columbus City Schools spends approximately $25,000 a student. Yeah, it's true. But that's the cost to educate a student and provide the education that Superintendent Chapman and the board says we need to do. Of that, we receive approximately $4,000, $4,300 from the state. The rest of that's borne, a small portion through federal grant programming, but the bulk of that's through the generosity of our community. They support us. They've chosen to invest in our community. And while the state likes to throw out that $25,000 expenditure, it is frustrating to me because, yes, they do provide us some funding, but it isn't $21,000 worth. That's the piece that we never hear about. So hopefully that.
It does. And my last question, just trying to help the listening audience kind of understand how money moves around in the district. So if a parent and student choose to go to another school other than a Columbus City school, when that student then returns back to Columbus City Schools after October 1st, count week, do we receive that money back into the district?
We get a portion. It used to be we were locked in. I'm grayer and balder, so I can relate to this. When I first started, it was count week, and that was really it. You didn't get any more money if they were there, so there was a big push on that. I'm going to call it, they are funding us now similar to the community schools, if you will. If they're here, we get funded, but it's just a portion of that funding. So again, oftentimes, and Dr. Chapman's better equipped to speak to this, not all students, but a lot of students come back to us from other entities that we're educating, and they might be behind. They might not have the tools that they need. So we as a district invest to bring them up because that's what our mission is, and that's an added expense to us. Even though we don't get that full revenue from the state, we still make Skippy sure that we're providing an adequate, fair, and appropriate education.
I love Skippy Sure.
Thanks.
So I just try to make sure that people understand it's a very complex model. When you move one piece of the model, it impacts greatly the bigger picture of the model.
It's hard for us to be nimble on a fiscal sense because it does have that cascade domino effect down. Yes, it's easy to say, why don't you get rid of this? Well, that layer may impact 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 other things downstream. So it's not that easy. I can promise the community we have these discussions all the time. My team and my office, we're always looking at this. We took a lot of time, the 3 direct reports today, to go through this and talk about how can we do this better? What areas do we need to examine and look at? So we're constantly having those conversations.
So there's fixed costs, there's like one-time cost savings. Like everyone says, well, sell a building, that's a one-time cost savings. That's not gonna, like you stated, and you can finish the sentence if you like.
Great point, but I wanted to highlight, you just triggered something. So when we sell a facility, it's not money that just rolls into the general fund. We're required by law to place that into permanent improvement. So if we sold every facility tomorrow, got $1 billion, it goes into PI. We still have deficit spend in the general fund. So monetizing our assets doesn't fix the general fund problem that we're facing.
In the sales perspective.
Correct.
In the sales perspective.
Disposition of real estate, yes.
Yes. All right. And thank you so much for those clarifying questions. Before we transition to the next portion of our conversation, I just want to uplift a couple of things. The first, thank you for the question about the 2.25, the 2.25 for the 1 year. So we're at a space right now where we are planning for that consideration for 1 year, that 2.25, right? There is reopener opportunity in the years preceding, the 2 years preceding, to re-engage that conversation. But where we are continuing to stand is based on what the numbers are actually telling us, that we are still in a deficit spending space. That does not mean like we're misusing credit cards. What it means is that the cost of operations is a certain amount, and we don't have but a certain amount at that rate. We're not meeting it. So now that gap is getting wider and wider every year. So I just wanted to uplift that, but thank you, because that, to borrow from A.J. Crable, that is a rigorous relationship with reality, right? The one is a forecast of 1%, but the rigorous relationship reality is the 2.25. So thank you for that. The other question is of cash on hand. In years previous, we have always maintained a practice of having between 30 and 60 days cash on hand to make sure the bills are paid, folks are paid, lights are on, so on and so forth. Is that 30 or 60-day cash on hand piece a variable considered in this upcoming budget?
Yes, you'll see that Tuesday night. I highlighted as we spend down our cash, at the end of this forecast period in 2030, we're at 9.3 million, approximately 3 days in reserve. So yes, we'll talk about that Tuesday night.
Thank you. I look forward to it. And the last thing, closing before we transition, is one of those ways in which we actually try to recoup dollars. So Medicaid, as you heard, is one of those instances and where we actually try to get those dollars back. It's only a partial amount. It's only a partial amount. These dollars are used for very specific things. So if we have students in the district, for example, who are SPED students, we have students in the district who need physical therapy or some sort of therapy, occupational, we have the proceeds to be able to do that. We pay it out, but then we seek reimbursement back from the federal government. And you heard that amount at $7.5 million last year, and we're projecting a little over $5 million this year. We don't know how that dynamic is going to change. And the reason being, folks, is because the federal government is backlogged. They're actually backlogged on what they're paying, what's supposed to go out. And I think that's one of the reasons why they're trying to transition dollars back to people in a way that they're trying to argue. But we still need that critical investment in Medicaid for our 100% free and reduced lunch students who are economically impacted, whether they come from working families or not. So I just wanted to make that case. Yes, please.
Medicaid.
Yeah.
So the Medicaid, it's reimbursement because the individual family is eligible.
Correct.
And so remember that they're also considering changes to Medicaid eligibility.
Yes.
And so that's important to watch as well. So we don't just, get to just
Give it to everybody.
get reimbursement
We
for
don't.
everyone.
Correct.
And the families have to proactively fill out the paperwork with us, and so that we have that information. So just to clarify that a little bit, it's a little bit more complicated, but extremely important to watch all of that Medicaid, because we have been doing a really great job recouping that, working with our families to bring that back. And ETRM did look at that this past year.
And if I may, I also want to thank Auditor O'Connor for all the great work that he has done in this Medicaid space.
Absolutely.
2 years ago, I think, or maybe a year ago now, Audit and Accountability Committee, a really robust report around the opportunities that we still had to explore with Medicare. So I just want to thank you, Auditor O'Connor, for your leadership and work in that space.
I appreciate that, but Dr. Floyd is very instrumental in the work that gets done.
Absolutely. Yep.
Kudos to her. Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, so as we move forward, we are going into section 3.3. Now, let me preface how we're moving forward. This is a very tense part of the conversation. We got to start off with appreciative inquiry. We got to start off with learning about the great things that are happening in the district and the great potential moving forward that's available and opportunities for kids. We're going to have some tough conversation moving forward. Tough conversation that is not comfortable. Tough conversation where I'm going to ask everybody in the room, anyone who is watching, to watch it without a political lens. If you're wearing political glasses, please challenge yourself to take them off. And let's have a rigorous relationship with reality in this conversation about what is best for children, what is best for the district moving forward in terms of sustainability, and what this realignment process should actually seriously take under consideration. We join these committees for a reason, to provide some recommendation and some perspective, added perspective to the work that we as your Board of Education do. But remember, I really want to challenge each of you to not put those political spectacles on. Take those off and actually let's have a real conversation about what we're facing and the tough challenges that are ahead. So with that, we will walk into the transportation cost models and academic impacts presentation. Mr. Woods.
So thank you for that introduction. I also want to acknowledge the other board members and the committee members and those in the audience. And for those that may not be in the room, my name is Maurice Woods, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Columbus City Schools. We're the third part of today's conversation, specifically Section 3.3. And I do believe that there's a thread that's woven through today's conversation. You're going to hear some comments in our presentation about how we believe we can help support the building of stronger neighborhood schools. You're going to hear a thread in our conversation about how we believe that by being more efficient, we can create more opportunities as channel funds into the classroom to address our budget deficit. And then last but not least, the comments made by Board Chair Cole about a tough conversation. We believe and we embrace these tough conversations, especially in the environment that we're in today. So we're excited to be here to have this conversation with you. I want to acknowledge, I do have a co-presenter with me today, our Executive Director of Transportation, Mr. Rodney Stufflebeam. He's been doing an amazing job in a challenging role. I just want to lift him and support him in the work that he does. I also want to call out a friend that we have in the audience, because we may phone a friend, depending on the depth of the questions. We have one of our partners here, Doug Palmer, who is formerly of the Ohio School Board Association. And I may call him to the podium, but depending on the types of questions that we get in today's conversation. So if we go to the next slide, please. So today we're going to talk about the past, the present, and the future. We're going to spend a little time on the front end just level setting around the cost escalation that we've seen in transportation over the last few years specifically. We're going to talk a little bit about the root cause for that cost escalation. Districts, not only in this state, but nationally, are experiencing some of these same challenges. But we also want to recognize that when you compare us to others, you're going to see that our cost structure is misaligned. And we believe that that's an opportunity for us to re-envision or reimagine how we're doing some of our transportation practices to help put our structure more in line with some of our peer districts, some of our peers within the state of Ohio. Just a quick comment on the present. We had a really good 2024-25 school year. And we're off to what appears to be a really solid 25-26 school year. But we still have a ways to go. And at the end of this conversation, we're going to spend some time talking about short-term and long-term opportunities. The next few slides have presented, or some of you in the room have seen these. I'm going to go through them relatively quickly, but it does set the tone about how our cost structure compares to national median and Ohio state peers in the state of Ohio. So this slide basically identifies that we spend more on transportation than the national median. You have two bar charts there. Stacked on the bar charts are different functions within the operations portfolio. I've highlighted where transportation falls within that structure. And as you can see, we spend more than the national median. We also recognize on the next slide that there are some nuances here in the state of Ohio. We're the only state in the nation where we, by law, have to transport our charter non-public students. So it's hard to do some national comparisons because we're unique in some aspects. But we can still compare to some of our peers, but we then recognize that we're the largest district. So we want to make sure that as we're thinking about our peers, we try to identify those that are closest to us. So we'll call out some comparisons specifically to Cincinnati and Akron. I do want to just mention, to Cleveland and Akron. I do want to mention that Cincinnati is, it's a little bit challenging, or a little bit more challenging to get data and information from the Cincinnati public schools. So we leverage what we have. Next slide, please. So our model is heavily driven by our current practices. You're going to hear us today talk a little bit about state minimums. We do some things that are above the state minimums, and we're going to pull those out and highlight those today. This slide just basically says that our expenditures in our current state puts us at the higher end on the right side of this bar chart as it compares to our other districts here in the state of Ohio. And I call your attention to Akron and Cleveland specifically. Next slide, please. So this slide also highlights that we have more riders, significantly more riders on our bus than our peer districts. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide, but the box on the left-hand side of the slide identifies what are some of the factors that are influencing the ridership counts. And we're going to talk about some of those today. The next slide is really a summary slide that goes a little bit deeper in identifying the impact of our model and practices on some of the key metrics. So if you look at total miles, Cleveland's total miles of 2.1 million miles annually is approximately 22% of our 9.5 million miles. CCS has significantly higher miles per assigned bus, and we believe that a large portion of that is related to us supporting our school choice and our lottery model. Reducing the number of buses, as you can see, we have 465 versus some of our other peer districts. Reducing the number of buses has a direct correlation in our ability to reduce cost and put money back into the classroom. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Stuffelbein at this point, who's going to talk a little bit about what is the root cause to some of the challenges associated with the cost escalation over the last few years.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Transportation service evaluation. In 1996, we're going to start with that as our baseline. We had 760 drivers, transported nearly 36,000 plus students on over 700 routes. The critical point was we had more drivers than routes equals built-in flexibility and coverage. Under 50 charter non-public schools existed at that time. The 2024 reality check, the driver crisis. Ohio is down 28% in school bus drivers compared to the national average of 15% post-COVID. The demand explosion. We now have 167 charter non-public schools within Franklin County that we are obligated to provide transportation services for. We've actually been able to work that down to where we're only doing 120. The resource mismatch. We had 445 drivers trying to cover 475 routes. So we're already using 3 contractors to provide a relief on that part of the process. They were covering 105 CMP routes for us, and CCS was covering 370. The simple math problem, in 1996 you had 1.09 drivers per route. In 2024, you have 0.94. We automatically have a gap. There's a driver shortage just to match the routes of 30 drivers. That is not including sick days, training, or turnover. The critical question, how sustainable is this model with continued driver shortages? The bottom line, we're trying to provide 1996 service levels with 2024 resources while serving a dramatically expanded population. This isn't a policy problem, it's a resource allocation and priority decision problem.
Yeah, I'm going to jump back in here on slide 9. I apologize, there's a lot of numbers and information on this chart. I will try to help point you in the areas that I think are most relevant. This is a snapshot of our annual budget over the last 4 years. And I mentioned cost escalation a couple of times in the opening. If you look at the purchase service line, which is circled in red, that line item identifies the area in which we used outsourced purchase services and vendors to provide transportation and buses in those areas where we don't have enough drivers to provide that internally. You see the escalation there. I do want to call out in the year 2023-24, we had ESSER funds that were supporting this work. Those funds went away, 25-26, and we had to absorb those in the general fund. The other thing I want to call out is under total expenses, you can see our annual budget has risen to approximately $75 million. It's stabilized over the last year, but we recognize that this is not sustainable given the environment and some of the conversations that we just had about our budget and funding situation. I do want to acknowledge that this particular slide does not include our non-compliance penalties, which are approximately $15 million over the last couple of years. We don't include them in our general budget, so they're not included in this slide. However, on the next slide, I wanted to take an opportunity to really explain how the non-compliance penalties impact our budget. So if you look at this slide, the state reimburses us approximately $29 million, $28.9 million. However, throughout the year, because of non-compliance penalties, and we'll go into detail in that, I'm sure, during the Q&A, but basically non-compliance is when we're not meeting the requirements of state law. We get penalties for that, specifically with our charter non-public schools. But throughout the year, our funds are reduced, for lack of a better word. If you look at what our actual state reimbursement is, which is the green line, are basically, for this particular year in general, we're receiving $17 million from the state. And that doesn't include penalties that we anticipate going forward for the remainder of the year. So if you're thinking about this from a profit and loss statement, our revenues are $17 million. I mentioned in the previous slide that our expenses are $75 million. So the hit on the general fund this year is approximately $58 million. Those are funds that some of them could be used to help improve some of the neighborhood schools that the superintendent mentioned. It can help cover some of the funding deficit that the superintendent mentioned. However, we're going to have to take a look at some of our practices in order to do that. I'm going to hand it back over to Rodney to talk about state minimums.
Thank you, sir. State transportation minimums. These are legal mandates, not suggestions. Here's what the state requires we provide under Ohio Revised Code 3327.01. 2-mile rule, K through 8 students living over 2 miles from their assigned school get transportation. The career tech transportation. High schoolers must get rides to career technical programs. Non-public coverage. Private and charter schools students get transportation when CCS schools are closed. The 30-minute windows. Students cannot arrive more than 30 minutes late to school or early and cannot be picked up more than 30 minutes prior to the end of the school day or more than 30 minutes after the end of the school day. Special needs mandate. Students with disabilities get transportation regardless of distance. The critical frame that we have to face is notice what's not here. No minimum service quality standards, no maximum ride times, and no comfort requirements. The challenge question we're faced with is we're legally compliant, but are we strategically effective? The data gap to the highlight is how many students fall into each category, what's our actual cost per mandate. The bottom line is state minimums define the floor, not the ceiling. The real question is what service level we choose above these requirements. Meeting legal minimums does not equal solving transportation problems or serving families well. Throughout the state, we've noticed through our partnerships that several districts have already taken action on this. We're not alone in this. Districts across Ohio are making hard choices about transportation scope. The trend right now is 6 of 7 surveyed districts have eliminated or severely limited transportation for grades 9 through 12. The only exception was Toledo, and they're providing a limited shuttle service that is not universal. The common driver is all site driver shortages forcing prioritization of K-8 students. Key examples are Milford, Independence, Northern, Lakota, Olentangy. Complete elimination of high school transportation. Cleveland Metro, RTA passes only for 9 through 12, shifting responsibility to families. Toledo has a shuttle service that is not door-to-door. It's a partial compromise. These aren't anti-high school decisions. They're resource allocation decisions under constraint. If comparable districts are prioritizing elementary, middle school over high school transportation, what justifies our different approach? Some of the ideas that we've come up with and some of the cost-saving options we have put on the table are as follows. In year one, high school transportation, we've looked at 2 options, and there's 2 clear choices within those. Option 1, COTA transfer model. High schoolers use COTA with 1 transfer to CMP, 1 transfer, and for CMP schools, and limited yellow bus service. So what that means is CCS would have COTA passes. Any charter non-public school that has more than 1 transfer would have to have yellow bus service, but the 1 transfer they can use COTA passes. The service alone would save approximately $4.7 million, reduce the need for 50 fewer buses, reducing dependency on vendors, but creates transfer complexity for some students. Yellow buses may need to service CMP students that require more than 1 transfer. Barriers to accessing school choice programs for certain students may result in uneven enrollment across high school buildings. Short-term option number 2 is eliminate high school transportation. No district transportation for 9s through 12. The savings for this would be approximately $7.2 million. The trade-off is it would require 75 fewer buses and shifts responsibility again to families. Cincinnati Public Schools is already moving towards increased Metro bus usage, projecting a $2 million savings in reduced yellow bus costs. Some other considerations: implementing a culture change. High school students access to the distant school options will be parents' obligations. Attendance disruptions are expected during extreme weather events, and economically disadvantaged families are likely to be disproportionately affected. The equity impact, the reality questions that we are faced with. Which families can't adapt to these changes? How does the effect access the specialized programs? Are we creating transportation barriers that compromise student welfare? And the underlying issue is high schoolers have more transportation alternatives than elementary students, but not all families have equal access to those alternatives. Both options force a fundamental question. Is high school transportation a core district responsibility or a family convenience we can no longer afford? Another long-term cost-saving option we've explored is bell times, specifically middle school bell times. Bell schedules work to match ridership with the number of buses available. A hub and spoke allows for 1 collection in the community versus multiple stops. Middle school, the smallest number of students transporting, matching with the CMP bell times or aligning with the CMB bell times allows us to reduce the number of buses translating a cost reduction of approximately $5.5 million. Changing all the bell times moves from a 2-tier system to a 3-tier system, which allows us to better utilize our existing bus fleet. Nope, she's still there. And more runs per bus. Current bell times, high school, middle school are 7:30 drop-off and 2:30 pickup. Elementary is 9 a.m. and a 3:30 pickup. The proposed high school bell times would be 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Middle school would be 8:30 and 3:30, and elementary school would be 7:45 and 2:15. Other considerations. Heightened communication needed to all stakeholders within the district, and oversight needed at hubs for AM and PM student transfers. The long-term cost-saving option builds over time. To create multiple tiers, all bell schedules will need to be adjusted. Starting elementary first allows for greater route time in the afternoon, thus reducing the number of buses required to use during that window of transportation. These 3-tier scenarios would also need to implement a hub-and-spoke model to reduce the number of buses used in each community during the same time. It would increase the number of shuttle buses between schools. Staff adjustments at the buildings would need to match programming needs. Currently, we are matching students to where the programs are located. This creates the cross-district transportation problem we are currently facing. Example is long routes in excess of 90 minutes versus short routes in 45 minutes or less. Again, the current bell times are high school, middle school, 7:30 and 2:30, elementary school, 9:30 and 3:30, proposed high school, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., middle school to 8:30 to 3:30, and elementary school, 7:45 to 2:15. Some other considerations that we must take into account. Earlier start and dismissal times for elementary schools could inconvenience parents who need afternoon daycare coverage. Missed communications will lead to chaos, and CCS may need to revise programming to match community attendance. And now I'll turn it over to Mr. Woods.
Thank you, Mr. Stuffelbein. So we've been thinking about these scenarios for quite a while now, because we recognize that our current cost structure cannot be sustainable long-term. We also recognize that with a $50 million deficit, that we really have to look at what are some alternatives that we need to bring forth for consideration and discussion. This slide, again, my apologies for the small font, but it basically summarizes the scenarios that we just presented, and the takeaway is on the right-hand side of this slide that says that over time, if we were to implement our scenarios that we're bringing forward, we could potentially save the district between $21 and $24 million. I also want to just call out that it's not all about cost savings. We believe that by doing this, we could potentially increase our efficiencies and our effectiveness of how we're providing transportation to the majority of our students. So with that, our recommendation, next slide, please. Our recommendation to the board is, after today's conversation and dialogue, there is an aspect in the policy that would need to be modified if we were to move forward, specifically on the high school options. We believe that the bell time, the lottery, the school choice, those options are going to require significantly more analysis, research, engagement in the community, and will take more time to implement. We believe that changing the high school bell time is something that, if a decision is made fairly quickly, we could implement that by the start of the 26-27 school year and realize some savings that we can then direct towards our budget deficit and/or back into the classroom. That concludes our presentation. What I would like to propose to the chairs or the chair, I'm not sure how to address the three committees, is that maybe we pause for questions on this part, because there was a lot of information shared, and then we can bring up Catherine Moser to talk about the impact and the academic aspect, if it's the will of the board.
So, we are currently at 7:40. So what I'd like to do is open the floor up for questions about transportation, this presentation. And, you know, whatever questions you have relative to the recommendations that were made. I'll start with. Yep, and you project a little bit so we all can hear you, yeah.
Two very quick questions. So, am I to understand, are we to understand that if 9 through 12 transportation is eliminated as compulsory for Columbus City School students, then we would also, that also eliminates the requirement that Columbus City School transportation takes public or charter, private school, non-Columbus City School kids to wherever they go every day?
For some of those.
Okay.
There is yeah, for 9 through 12, there is a rule in the legislation and the statutes that says, it says in the statute that if there is more than one transfer required to get that student to that school, they cannot use CODA. We would then have to provide yellow bus service.
Okay. And then for the school systems that were shown that don't do the 9 through 12 and I saw the savings with that, but do we have any information about what the attendance change for those high school students was? So essentially, the concern is, are those kids still able to get to school? Is there a significant change in their attendance levels if they are no longer providing transportation?
We would have to review that and see what that impact may look like.
Yeah. One data point that I can speak to, and we've had some conversation around this, is, you know, as we think specifically about the school choice and the lottery schools, a lot of those schools where we provide ample transportation, we haven't seen there hasn't been a significant benefit in the level of attendance in those schools, and I believe that we've actually seen some decline in attendance in those schools.
Is there, and sorry, I'm sneaking in a third question real quick.
Let me try to see if I can also answer that question, because I was here before when we were only doing K to 8.
And Board Member Reyes is acknowledged.
Sorry, I apologize for that. I just thought it was a committee meeting. So when prior to that, we were at about a 74% attendance rate in Columbus City Schools, i.e. why the board at the time made the decision to add high school busing. So, but keeping in mind that that's also the same time we were talking about whether we would go from neighborhood schools to choice schools. And also keeping in mind, like he said, there was less charter schools at the time. So the impact was a lot less when you're talking about making those changes to expand to the 9 to 12. So the numbers were a little bit less, but it was at about 76%, and we saw the jump to attendance within a year. And Dr. Klein was here. We probably got it up to 89% during that time, and then it lowered a little bit because of the expansion of the choice.
Is there an option to simply say that parents that engage in school choice or the lottery programs are responsible for taking their kid to their non-community school? Is that an option that the board has considered or can consider?
Absolutely.
Thank you for that question. That is an option that we will also be discussing. We'll begin that conversation tonight, and then we'll also continue that conversation at our joint committee meeting next month.
Thank y'all.
Thank you for the questions.
Yes, Mr.
Yeah, Mr. Woods, I'm glad you're here with budgets, because my son says I need to do a better job with the budget at my house.
Me too.
But having said that, I can add, we have you said $1 billion budget, $800 million is gone. $200 million is left over, $75 million for transportation. Too much. There's no way we can get there without you reducing buses. 465 buses? That's too many. That's way too many. I continue to hear about efficiencies and effectiveness, and I'd like to hear more about in transportation, how we're going to get there. Because right now, the only thing I'm hearing is we're going to put that responsibility on families. And I continue to tell the families in Linden, you're responsible for your child's education. And here we are again. I am concerned about the least of them in this district. We have too many poor people in our district. In Linden, family of four, $50,000. And now I need you to get your child to school. It might just be enough to break up that family.
So if I can ask, what's your question too?
How are you going to reduce the buses, 465? Where's the effectiveness and the efficiency coming in transportation, other than on the backs of families in this district who are impoverished?
So I appreciate your question. I'm sorry, through the chair, were you going to say something?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
So thank you for the question, and it's something that we're very sensitive to. What we do recognize, though, is that the root cause of us having the budget of $75 million is something that we can't directly control, which is a driver shortage. That's the root cause of that. What the team has done over the last year, 2 years, we've worked hard to squeeze inefficiencies out of transportation. The budget has stabilized this year. We will continue to do that. But in order to make any material changes to the cost of our budget, we really have to look at some of the practices that we've discussed today. It's one of those tough conversations that we have. And again, we also called out some other districts that have had these tough conversations. And, you know, it does involve asking for, in this situation, high schoolers potentially to carry some of the brunt of the cost of transporting at that level.
Conditionally.
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 But thank you for the question, Mr. Robinson. We're sensitive to that.
Thank you.
Mrs. Barnes?
My question is on the CODA part of it. All right, if we shift to CODA, who pays for, we're paying CODA to transport the students, or how does that work? I'm not real clear on that.
No, we will provide the CCS students with the passes. And Dr. Klein's office already does that for the 9th through 12th grade students. The only addition we would have is those charter non-public students that would be transferred to CODA, we'd be obligated to pay for their passes.
So we would still have to pay for charter and non-public students.
What's the cost of a CODA pass?
But it's considerably less because we're not
Yes.
dealing with bus and gas and maintenance.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Can you say what the amount is per student again?
$11.50 per student per semester, and we pay for 2 semesters.
If I can just call out.
Very inexpensive.
Thank you, I'm sorry. If I can just call out, you know, we've been, under the guidance of the superintendent, we've been working hard to establish partnerships throughout the city. We have an amazing relationship with CODA. We've been meeting with them quite frequently. We know that they're expanding their services throughout the city, so that's something that we can line up with. But we have been engaging them in these conversations, and they have been at the table trying to help us resolve them as well. So I just want to acknowledge that partner.
I have a
Any
question.
additional, Mr. Simmons? And, well, let me go to, did you have your hand raised,
Yes,
ma'am?
he did.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Did you? I'll go with you and then Mr. Simmons.
And so does.
And the gentleman? Okay. I just haven't heard from her all night, so yes.
So for our parents that may have the income issue, they may be impoverished, what kind of penalties are gonna be put into place, or what are they facing if they can't get their kid to school?
I can't answer that one.
You're asking like truancy?
Yeah, so there are truancy rules in the state of Ohio for all families. And certainly we know there are a variety of reasons why students don't come to school. And we certainly, there's lots of opportunities, lots of touch points to work with families, to correct and intervene when we establish a pattern of non-attendance with our students. There's lots of opportunities to, you know, work with them and talk with them about what their needs are and how we can best support them. I just also think it's worth highlighting that In CCS, the majority of our students do not attend a neighborhood school. Majority of our students, I think it's high as 60% of our students do not attend a neighborhood school. So the challenges that we're talking about, right now we're talking about just transportation, but it's also about families making different choices, because the complexity of transporting students from the west side to the northwest side, from the south side to far northwest, what we're saying is we may have been able to do that, years ago when we had 200 additional drivers, but this is a different day. And so we can't continue to provide that service to our families at the detriment of our core business, which is educating children. We don't have a budget for $100 million to focus on curriculum and instruction. We have a budget for $100 million to transport children, and I would argue that that's not our primary line of business in Columbus City Schools. And so we have to think differently. We have to surface this conversation, and we have to be willing to make some really tough decisions. That doesn't mean that the student will not have access to a neighborhood school. It means that our families will have to make some tough choices about because it's one thing to say that you want your child to go to school at this school, and it's, it takes me 40 minutes to get there during rush hour in my car without making a stop. But imagine how long it takes a child to get to that school on a yellow bus with 60 students making multiple stops during rush hour traffic. I don't know about you, but moving around Columbus now has changed. It's not easy. A 20-minute ride has turned into a 45-minute ride or more. So, and then that adds to the complexity. It adds to the cost. It serves as a disruption to our students, right? Their day is going to be disrupted if you're sitting on a bus for over an hour. When you get to school, you're exhausted. That takes a lot out of you. And so I just want us to be mindful of the fact that the system that we've designed with transportation is an antiquated system. We have to think differently about the services that we provide today based on all the factors that we presented to you.
I thank you for that, Dr. Chapman. Vice President, do you have any thoughts or comments you'd like to make before we transition?
I just think it's important. I know that it's hard, and these are, as President Cole started out, very difficult conversations. I mean, I myself am a lottery parent. My child transports across the city every day to and from school because we did not choose our neighborhood school. So I understand. But I think it's important, as we sit here as a community to try to figure out this challenge, that we are keeping all of the pieces in mind. And that's really what these joint committee sessions are designed to do, and why we set up the work we did. We've taken deep dives into a lot of these topics as committees over the course of the year. So considering, first we hear the vision that Dr. Chapman is bringing forward and this realignment of what is our academic priorities and delivery, and understanding that we are trying to get it back down into areas where there is more access for all families across the city, where you don't need to feel like you got to go across the city, right? But then also considering when we're looking at these choices, as we hear the treasurer say, the board has made a $50 million commitment to cutting our budget, so that we're not choosing to come back to the voters. Let's be real about what that choice was. And in a couple months, Dr. Chapman is going to come back to this group of people and let us know what is on her list that could be cut. And so we're having these proactive discussions about cost savings. Where could we look at places in our district? And so transportation is one of them. We're going to hear a little bit about lottery in a second, about how those two things actually kind of work together. We might need to make some changes there. And then we'll talk about realignment and facilities in our next meeting. So you kind of have to put all the pieces together and realize that really there's a path through this. And it's keeping in mind that it's a very holistic picture. So at some point, we as a board and as this community are going to have to decide, is it more important for us to use the money that we have available to transport kids above the state minimum, considering all the things? Or is it more important to have services and staff in our classrooms? That is literally the question we are driving to. And so, like President Cole said, we kind of got to take the glasses off, whether that be political, whether that be, personal or neighborhood, and kind of help us think about it from the highest level. And that's why you are all so important and critical to this discussion and dialogue. So that's all I really have to say, is kind of just level setting back down to what we're driving to through the next meetings. We'll be coming back in 3 months, like next month in November together. There'll be joint meetings, so we can continue this dialogue and help the board as we, figure out the best answers to make sure we have a sustainable district to get to that vision that Dr. Chapman outlined.
Thank you for that thought. Just before I get to you, because I definitely want to make sure we have the time to continue with with Mrs. Mosier. If I can, the other priority, again, beyond the numbers, beyond the math of finance, is ensuring that our children have the level up opportunity still to get to school in a timely way, right? So you heard us mention, and we'll talk a little bit more about it, you heard us mention the change of bell time as one of those options. And there's a district here in the state of Ohio, smaller one significantly, but they did make a bell time change, and it actually is something that is working for them. But at the same time we're dealing with this fiscal side of it, we're also even more drilling down on where we continue the opportunity to provide high-quality education for children in a way that will give them every opportunity post us. So we'll go right on into Mrs. Mosier's portion of this presentation, the academic impacts. Thank you for joining us this evening. Just keep your questions in the parking lot. We will get an opportunity to get to them.
Good evening. Thank you. Dr. Kleiner, running the slides there. Perfect. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, my colleagues on the operations team. I'm Catherine Moser, and I serve as the Deputy Superintendent. I do want to name that no matter what decisions are ultimately made regarding transportation, we will continue to follow, as you see on the slide, the Ohio law, which requires that we transport eligible students with disabilities. Not all students with an IEP are eligible for transportation, but if the student's IEP identifies transportation, we will continue to transport that student. The transportation efficiencies that have been presented would allow the district to invest more directly in the supports our students need to meet the board goals in literacy, math, and graduation, and provide the opportunity to strengthen our neighborhood schools. This is a slide some of you may be familiar with, but I think it's important that we bring it back out in this conversation. While we prioritize instruction as a district, CCS spends a slightly lower proportion of total dollars on instruction, at 49%, compared to national comparison districts at 51%. So let me say that again. As a total spend, we spend less on instruction. As you previously heard a couple of minutes ago, the amount we are able to spend on instruction is directly impacted by our transportation costs. Recall that you saw the slide showing our purchase service for transportation has increased from $3.4 million to $21.4 million since 22-23. This is not true of our classroom resource budget, which has been essentially flat for 4 years. We are spending approximately $1,300 per student to sustain the current transportation model. And for every $3 we spend on transportation, we are spending just 1 on classroom resources. We go back. So there's that slide again. Again, you can see how the overall cost for our current model has grown and is impacting our ability to properly resource the academic needs of our students. With changes to transportation services, we do anticipate that more families will choose a school closer to home, as Dr. Chapman mentioned. And while it may go without saying, strengthening neighborhood schools has a positive impact on students in the school and in that community. I want you to again think about the career academies that we heard about at the beginning of the meeting, and that vision for what all students should have with access to strong schools closer to home. Neighborhood schools can provide a broader range of services that help create a vibrant school community where students feel pride, ownership, and belonging. We expect to see improved academic outcomes when students are able to participate in after-school tutoring, activities, or clubs because they're offered closer to home. We expect that students would also attend school at a higher rate. I do want to mention that currently, with the robust transportation offerings that we have, the attendance for students who are eligible for transportation and those who are not eligible at the high school level currently is about the same. We know that when schools are closer to home, families are more likely to be involved, attending workshops, volunteering, or seeking help, and that these activities can build trust between schools and families. I do want to, at this time, invite Dr. Klein to share some in high-level overview about our school choice lottery system. Certainly, we have made some decisions as the system over the years, such as school choice and lottery, that exacerbate our transportation challenges and have created our current reality where many students just do not attend the school closest to home. So we're going to tee up a short conversation about lottery, just the facts, we said, just the facts, and then we will certainly come back next month at next month's joint committee meeting for a more robust conversation about school choice and lottery. Dr. Klein.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mosher. I appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. This evening, Tanya Freeman, our Director of Enrollment, and I will give you some quick statistics of our school choice lottery and share some definitions with you. As you have heard this evening, school choice lottery is one of the contributing factors in the expense incurred for transportation. We think it is important to share some statistics with you to help you understand the number of families who utilize the school choice process each year. Here's our Director Freeman to share those statistics from the 2024 school year as a teaser to next month's meeting. Director Freeman.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Columbus City Schools school choice lottery opportunities are widely popular with our families. The General School Choice Lottery offers students a variety of high-quality educational options by giving families a chance to submit a lottery application for available seats at up to 3 schools that are not assigned to their address. These selections each have equal weight as each school and each grade level have their own lottery. This opportunity is open to all families who reside within the Columbus City school boundaries and are wishing to apply to attend a school other than the school assigned by address. For the 2024-2025 school year, we received 20,976 school choice applications, representing 7,633 students, as 3 applications can be submitted for each student. 7,382 offers were extended to 5,078 students. 3,652 students accepted their offer. Remember, by accepting an offer, all other offers and applications are automatically declined. Therefore, often multiple offers are made for the same seat until that seat is filled. While the general school choice lottery impacts the greatest number of our students, CCS offers several other school choice opportunities that are also available under specific conditions. We'll explore all the types of school choice applications in greater detail during next month's meeting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for this information. Okay, so now the floor is open again for questions. Now, what I'd like to do, again, is make sure that we're asking the question as best we can. Your feedback with, some context is always helpful, but I want to make sure that we're asking a question directly. The other piece that I will ask of you all is that when we adjourn, when you have the time prior to the next joint committee meeting, these meetings will continue through November. I would love it if you all took the opportunity to do the homework, work through these presentations. If you have additional questions and/or concerns, please feel free to direct them to your committee chairs. Those committee chairs, then I will direct those questions to the superintendent or respective direct report and work from that perspective. Is everybody okay and clear and comfortable with that? Okay, awesome. All right, let's open the floor for questions. I will start with you, Mr. Simmons, and then you, Mr. Gentleman at the edge.
Thank you, President Cole. I had two questions, one for Dr. Klein and one for Mr. Woods. Dr. Klein, the CODA passes we're already paying for. Exactly what does that get our students currently?
Chair Cole, to Board Member Simmons' question, it allows 24/7 access for our students during the 2-semester time period, and there are no blackouts.
Thank you. And there's no trip limitation, so we wouldn't be, if we did make that decision, we wouldn't incur an additional cost. This is something we're already
No, sir.
paying.
It is a maximum cost per semester, and we do not get charged extra if a student uses it a lot.
Thank you. And then if we could go back to the recommendation slide, please, that would be helpful. Mr. Woods, I didn't quite understand what your recommendation to the committee is. I see the first bullet point, change high school transportation service bring forth change high school transportation services recommendation, but in the presentation, there's, you evaluated multiple options. So could you just kind of explain to me exactly what each of these 3 bullet points mean?
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you for the question. I think it provides me an opportunity to really highlight what we're asking the board to do, and it's really around the policy. So in our current policy, 8600, as it relates specifically to high school transportation, policy stipulates that we will be transporting grades 9 through 12. So that's in our policy. So if we were going to move forward with what we're recommending as a short-term solution, which is only the scenario that affects high school students, we would need the board to change the policy first to allow us to implement that.
And which scenario is that?
That's scenario 1, where we talked about high school transportation either providing CODA passes or providing no high school transportation at all.
So you're asking for the option to then choose between each of those. You're not making a specific recommendation for one or the other.
I want to.
That's for us to decide.
Is that page 12?
Yeah, I'm trying to be cautious.
Just be as thoughtful as you can.
Yeah, so I think it has to do with the level of reductions that we want to make in transportation, being sensitive to the impact on the families. So if we do scenario 2 or option 1, scenario B, I think it is, we provide no transportation to no high school students. That has more of an impact on the families. The other option is we would provide CODA passes. So part of this conversation is what is the appetite of this committee and the board in regards to the impact on the families.
So your recommendation is, you know, we say we change the policy, and then what would happen next?
More discussion.
Under your recommendation?
Yeah, we would have a discussion around which of the two scenarios that we would want to implement. Either quota passes to the high school students, or no transportation to high school at all.
And we would have that conversation respectfully under, if we have a policy committee, and we would then decide, you know, which option to make the modification and change to our board policy.
So you're just recommending one of the two options? Is that a better way to say it?
I'm recommending that we take a look at the policy,
Okay.
right, and eliminate or strike through.
So you aren't recommending one of the options?
We would have to have a discussion.
Well,
Okay.
it sounds as if both, it sounds as if both options still strike the opportunity to fund high school transportation. One just affords the opportunity to pay for bus passes.
Yeah.
That's what it is, but we still have to consider the policy 8600 to eliminate altogether 9th through 12th grade.
So the recommendation is just that we eliminate the requirement and then we examine additional solutions?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
That's correct. Thank you for allowing the clarification.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what my
And as-
colleagues were saying.
As modifying the policy to not require us to transport 9 through 12.
Allows for the flexibility.
Yeah, or allows for the flexibility. But at the end of the day, further conversation on that, we look forward to coming back with some additional, and again, the floor is open post this meeting for you all to share, submit your thoughts, concerns, and, you know, forward them to your chairs so that I can get them to the superintendent or respective direct report. There was someone else, Mr. Gentleman. Mr. Davis, thank you.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
thanks.
sorry, I can't see.
It's okay. Yeah, I know, and it's a long table now. So I first just want to open by saying, Rodney, I know how hard you work, and thank you for that, because when I learned how complex this is this summer, I definitely blew my mind. Also, I want to say, please don't apologize for showing numbers. In fact, can we go back to the numbers? Because there's one thing I want to get some clarification on. Now, I'm a numbers person, so I love numbers, but
I don't know which slide you want.
it was the one that had the 75 million. It was like the deep dive. It showed us a massive jump.
Slide 9.
I believe so. 8 or 9. Yeah, so while we're pulling that slide up, can you help us understand, that kind of blew us away. We all were talking to each other as you presented that. What happened here that we go from 3 to 9 to 20 in 3 years? Like, what is that that's driving it?
You want me to take it? So the major thing was we continued to lose drivers. At one point, we had 600 drivers when we started the 22-23 school year. By the end of that school year, we were less than 500. Therefore, the following year, we had to rely solely on contractors to bring in and cover the shortage. And ESSER funds was used to cover that shortage, so it's not accounted for in that. And then the ending of the ESSER funds in the 23-24 school year, those funds were transferred to general fund to continue that service.
Okay, so if I understand this correctly, that's what we're paying third-party contractors to help move kids.
In part. And in fact, if I can add to that, colleagues, we also wanted to ensure to attract quality employees as bus drivers. We increased the rate of pay.
Yeah.
So we increased the hourly pay rate for drivers as well. We did that under a few different circumstances. One, for the idea of getting more competitive in the space to attract drivers. The other was a systemic level up of our classified employees across the board, but definitely in that space as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. Sorry, I do have a couple more questions. I'm going to yield the floor in a minute, I promise. Okay, so I just want to point out, too, for everyone, in case you missed this, because we missed this the first time, that $75 million does not include the $50 million fine that we estimate, right? So that would mean that we're actually pulling $90 million from kids instead of $75 million. And that was something that took us a while to figure out. But one other thing I'm really curious about on that end is I know what's currently happening from some of the other subcommittee hearings that we've had is that the charter schools are waiting until the end of the school year when we no longer have the data available, and then going back and we can't prove that we did or did not deliver the kids on time, right?
Correct.
And so one thing I'm curious about is, have we explored an option this year for backing up that data so that when that happens, because we know it's going to happen again, we can give back the evidence and prove. I'm sure there are times we were late, we're not perfect, but I'm sure that more often than not, we were not late, right? And so I'm curious what avenues we've explored for that.
So I'm going to ask Mr. Stufflebean, for those who may not be privy to the question being asked, if you can just provide a little background around the non-compliance fees and the timing of those this year, to give some context to the audience, then I think there's a question there.
Yes. So in relation to last year, we were set, first off, I'd like to say, last year, we ended the 24-25 school year, one driver more than we started the school year with. That's the first time in the 4 years that I've been here that we've done that. Usually, we're facing a 30 to 40 driver deficit from where we ended to where we started. To speak to the non-compliance complaints, each one of those are levied against us through the district, or through the Department of Education and Workforce. We're notified of a complaint. When we're notified of a complaint, we have 5 days to investigate that complaint, respond to it to be unfounded or founded, and return that response back to the Department of Education and Workforce. As of for last year's totals, in April, we were sitting on, Ryan, I believe it was 1.4. We were set to have our very best year ever. So all of the practices we put in place to mitigate any of the complaints, to investigate them, to ensure that our contractors are doing what they needed to do, we were very successful with that. And then the end of April hit, and there was, I believe it was 3 to 4 charter non-public schools that had withheld all of their complaints from August up through April, and they were all brought at the same time, knowing that we have no way to go back and back up the data to see what had actually taken place, so we couldn't dispute it, we couldn't investigate it, we could not find if it was fact or if it was unfounded, any of that. So we had no obligation at that point but to take the complaints. We are working to set up a backup with that. The problem we run in with is the contractors, they're not technically our equipment, they don't have the same equipment we do, so there is a little bit of a problem with that. But what I would like to say is we just recently migrated to Traversa, and within Traversa there's rollout sheets and things of that nature that we can track the buses, even if they have a different GPS website. We have to upload those up, and right now we're working through the little bit of the hiccups that we're having with the process to make sure everything's flowing smoothly. That's our very next goal, is to get those all within line and make sure that the system's working correctly, and then add those into the mix so that we will have a backup for it.
If I can add to that too, one of the key issues that's a part of this whole complaint piece is communication. It's imperative that those in the education system who are charter non-pubs, that they communicate with us on a regular, that we strengthen that space so that we know whether there's a situation with the student or not, and enrolled in our system. I want to now go to Mr. Granger.
Thank you. I want to quickly revisit 2 important points that I heard earlier to set up a question. I really appreciated the comments about the feedback loop between strengthening academics and addressing transportation, and how maybe that relieves some of the pressure to feel the need to use those transportation services being offered, and tie that into another, I think, really important comment about community partnership, the importance of that. So my question is I guess directed to any of the speakers who care to comment on this, and maybe also maybe a challenge to all of us as our homework assignment to think about this. What does a strong community partnership look like really in detail, across different categories I've got written down here: families, nonprofits, city, county, employers, chambers, economic developers, industry sector partnerships, things of that sort. Like, the more specific that we can be, the more that we can then go to those partners to ask what could be helpful. And this is a question, I promise. I'm just kind of throwing some thoughts out there to help spur discussion. I mean, up in Northeast Ohio, there was an initiative a few years ago called the Paradox Prize. This was more for adult transportation. The paradox was, no car, no job, no job, no car. What do you do? And so they went out and got funding, and they came up with some creative community-based solutions. It's that sort of community coming together that maybe is needed here. And I mean, I know just, yesterday, Columbus Forward was announced by the council. I mean, I'm personally still digesting that, but maybe there's something there. So, put simply, the question is like, what does a good community partnership look like now, like this year, and then in future years?
If I can chime in on that just very quickly, just from my experience throughout my tenure on the board, this is something that we have continually developed over time. At the time that one of our employees was Alicia Gillison. Alicia Gillison created a paradigm, a kind of model of engagement that specified very clearly what good partnership, what a partner actually entails. At this point in time, we're in a good space of very clearly understanding what that is based on student need, based on building need and opportunity, based on relationships in all sectors. First sector is private, second sector is public, third sector is nonprofit. There's plenty of rich space where we have actually taken that work. One of the reasons you're here, one of the reasons, not only at the table, but even working with Northland High School, you understand? So I'll pass the ball to Dr. Chapman to further elaborate. It looked like you wanted to say something.
Certainly, I always have a comment. And certainly we think about partnerships. And I think the question, if I'm not mistaken, is thinking about if we make significant systematic and systemic changes to how we operate, then what type of partnerships will we need to then stand up to ensure that we are supporting all of our students, all of our families, so that they will have what they need so that their students can be successful. And so that's a question that I think we should all be thinking about. Certainly, we want to continue to have dialogue about these strategies, have dialogue about how our priorities, where our priorities need to lie with respect to the budget, with respect to the programming, with respect to what we want to offer our students. Because I know our treasurer, we have had lots of conversations. There's no new revenue that's coming in, right? And so we want to continue to provide opportunities, experiences for our students, whether they're in pre-K, 9th grade, or 12th grade. There are some tough decisions that we're going to have to make at the table, at this table, at the board table, in order to ensure that happens. It will not happen by osmosis. In fact, the opposite will happen. We will have to start cutting programs, resources, services that have a direct impact on the experiences of our 4-year-olds, on the experiences of our 12-year-olds, on the experience of every child in Columbus City Schools. And so the question for us is, are we willing to make the tough decisions so we can protect what's most important to us? Right now, we're protecting transportation. $100 million budget to support transportation. And I would argue that our priorities need to shift, right? As our funding, our resources, how we allocate our resources, the whole map has changed, right? We're having this conversation today. We don't know, tomorrow we may be back at this same table talking about we have another challenge before us with a decrease in federal funds. So now the gap is not 50, the gap is higher, right? We have to be thinking about how we can continue to have this conversation and come back to this table to ensure that our number one priority in this school district is ensuring that we're educating our students and not just doing an okay job of that, but doing an excellent, superior job of that. And if our failure to do that and make these tough decisions as adults to ensure that our students can not only graduate, but graduate with the skills that they need to be successful in the workforce, then the failure is on us. And so that's why we're here. We can continue to have these conversations. We're having this conversation tonight. We're talking about one area, transportation. Next month, we'll be talking about lottery and open enrollment. We'll be talking about realignment, how we, again, allocate our resources. We have resources, and we are allocating them. But are they in the right areas that we know we need the support and resources to ensure that our students are successful? So this is an opportunity for us to redirect those resources to where it matters today.
I thank you so much for that, Dr. Chapman. I still want to get some additional feedback. I'll go to Mrs. Barnes and Board Member Reyes.
Well, I just want to say thank you to you all. You're asking for community support. At least in the Mid-East, there are 13 schools. We are in every one of those schools. We have gotten grants for every one of those schools and set up partnerships. So it can be done. It can be done. And that leads me to the comment of switching the hours. You know, we're in these schools, and we know that elementary school kids are 7:45, they're popping, they're ready to roll. High school kids, not so much. They need 9 o'clock. They need that much. And if it's a problem of having to make sure that there's somebody for the elementary schools, then maybe we could increase latchkey, you know, and make it free. And then, yeah, I don't know. She said,
We're open to suggestions, but yes.
But then you wouldn't have to worry
May
about
not get it, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a thought.
There's trade-offs with
It's a
everything.
trade-off.
We
Absolutely.
increase here, we have to decrease somewhere else.
Yeah, we would have to
Opportunity
do
cost,
something.
yeah.
But it's possible your community is ready to do something. We're waiting on that plan. We really are. And not just our commission, but the commissions across the city. So just want to let you know.
Thank you for that, Mrs. Barnes. Mrs. Reyes.
Thank you. So my questions are things that you might want to come back with, because I know there might, well, you probably have them at the top of your head, but it's rather just come back for, if you can give us a calculation of the number of high school students that we have in the district and what that equates to from a transportation cost. Then the number of students not choosing a neighborhood school, and then split that up between K-8 and then 9-12 and add a cost to that. Because I think having those numbers, people will see that we're spending a lot of money between 9 to 12 at the possible detriment of the K through 8.
Well, I thank you.
Possibly.
Yes, ma'am.
So
I
that-
thank you for that.
So those are questions or requests.
Yep. So a portion of what you're asking, in fact, a significant portion of what you're asking for is what the slide deck identified in terms of savings, the possibility of savings.
Right, but I think I'm asking, you know what I'm asking for, Treasurer Cook. It's a little bit more of a, because if we're going to make a decision of, let's say that we make the recommendation of what we used to do, which was not transport 9 to 12, I think it's important for us to see that price tag. And back to what Dr. Chapman was saying, what that price tag is costing the 8-year-old and the 12-year-old and those other folks. And back to what everyone else is saying, you have to look at all the pieces. You won't need to transport the 9 to 12 if they go back to the neighborhood schools. Your 9th graders and 12th graders are more capable of walking to their neighborhood school than your K to 8. So when we gotta, back to what a lot of folks, we gotta separate these things. We're not taking, the suggestion is not to take transportation completely from everybody. The most vulnerable folks are the K through 8s. But if you go back to neighborhood schools, the likelihood as a person who had to walk to school all the way from K to 12, if I choose my neighborhood school, I'm more likely to go to school because it's next door versus it's not going to be, yes, you're not going to be able to go, if I live on the west side and I want to go to Northland, I'm not going to be able to go to Northland. But maybe that means that goes back to us. Make a really good school, that provides, if I want to be a musician because I want to go to Northland, well, maybe we have a very good band at West, and I don't have to go to Northland or to Linden, McKinley, or one of those others. So there's different pieces as we look at it, the committee think it's not one or the other. We're going to have to probably do it all together. Like sometimes they say, just rip the Band-Aid off so that we can get it. So it's not really what's up there. I think there's little pieces, if we break them out so people can see the bigger picture and understand the impact of that would be, I think I get nods over there, so I think you understand what I'm asking.
I do. I get what you're asking for, just to distill, is a bigger picture look at the ramification of moving towards a community school, a neighborhood school model, and what the kind of cascading cost impact of that actually is. Got you. I want to move to our next person with a question, because I do want to end on time. I do.
Can we go back to the recommendation slide?
Recommendation slides 12 through 14, I think.
My question is, because I know that we're ending kind of our time tonight, and we need to make a recommendation.
Yes.
Can I get some clarification, please, on this? We need to make a decision, or the board needs to make a decision by October. Does that mean that we need to make a recommendation so that you all can discuss and have it done on Tuesday? Or does that mean by October's board meeting?
No.
Will we have another committee meeting before?
Yes,
an
we'll have a series of committee meetings. So again,
I think the next board meeting is just the policy.
so there's a couple of things that we have to consider. First and foremost, tonight, we'd like to move forward with a recommendation and acceptance of the recommendation that was given to us. It could still be either option. You could say we're willing to have the board move forward with either option. But if there's a consideration to move forward, we'd like to know that tonight. Now, subsequent to that, what will happen is this. We will deliberate, but we will also engage the community around what additional feedback and perspective can be added to this conversation. At the end of the day, what we're looking to do with the superintendent in collaboration is by the second meeting of November, know exactly what it is that we're looking at. So by our first meeting in December, we're ready to take action ideally. Yes, ma'am.
I have a couple additional questions then. If we are going to be moving that fast, I'm going to be asking for a lot of information. But some of that information includes, have we considered things like our regions? I know that we have transportation regions, and then we have regions that we talk about in an academic sense. Have we talked about what those look like and how that may apply here? If we are doing a transportation policy change that requires us to look at where kids are going to school and look at the lottery, there could be lots of ways that you shape that language and you shape that policy. So perhaps if you're going to a lottery school within your same region, I don't even know if the regions make sense, but in theory, let's say they do. If you go to a school that's within your same region, maybe you're still qualified, and if you choose to send your child or you choose to go to a school that is not within the region, that is an option. I think that there are lots of other factors and considerations that we should look at, specifically if we are doing bus passes. What is the bus availability of the area, of the region? What is the safety aspects of the region? We know that the busing in this city is not the same depending upon where you live, and while CODA is doing incredible work and this Link Us work is incredible work, and I'm fully supportive of that, we still have a lot to work on in our region and in our city, and I think those are all really, really complicated decisions that we can't totally slow down the work on, but those are things that I would like to see and think about, because a blanket, we're going to remove bus transportation for grades 9 through 12, well, there's a lot of steps in between, and perhaps the steps in between are not good enough, but I would like to have that information to fully know what I'm making the decision on.
Go ahead.
Can I just clarify? I just want to make sure what the intention is. Everything that Board Member Ingalls just said, and that's, so what we need to do as a committee is make the recommendation for the board to consider this deeper. And part of that is that the policy needs to be looked at and examined in all of the aspects that she just mentioned. We also have a process at the board level of changing policy, which this is one of them, which includes a first and second reading and community engagement and all of that. So basically this recommendation is for the board to do that, to take and start the process, to make these considerations and do it deeper. And this committee would get updates on that in terms of community engagement, and we would be having report outs from the board. And as President Cole said, the idea would be that this would be voted on in December. So we still have many, many months to continue to talk about this as a community and balance it, again, with information that you are all going to continue to get in the next couple months, and culminating in November when we hear from the superintendent about what is part of that $50 million budget cut. So it's a way for us to start the conversation. And the check here of this committee is, it's that community gut check. Like, do you think that the board should really look at this in earnest as a way to, take that deeper dive, do the community engagement, look at the policy, start drafting it, and have these conversations so that we can begin to work on this as we're building up the other pieces towards November.
Well, we will definitely take the policy recommendation under consideration regardless.
Yeah.
We have to have that conversation. Board Member Vera.
Thank you.
I'll call you President Emeritus.
Thank you, Chair Cole. I just want to kind of echo my colleague, Board Member Ingles' sentiments. I think for me, in recognizing the timeline that we're discussing tonight, we keep saying community engagement. I want to know exactly what does that mean? Like, if we're talking about how are we really going to engage our community around these big changes? So is that town halls? Is that surveys? Is that just really wanting to get an understanding as to what is our community engagement strategy? And then I also just want to echo my concern with CODA and recognizing that, I would like to get a better understanding what would be their game plan, right? Because I still think about the student experience. And ultimately, we can continue to invest and create more opportunities within community schools or neighborhood schools. But if our kids can't get there, and then it becomes a third-party issue, and we've already done away with this, do we really know what the plan that CODA has to be able to now transport our kids? What does that plan look like on top of their daily operations? So I think it's important that we see some level of a framework as to what this could really look like. What is their contingency plan? Because that's a public transportation. And so I'm not against it. I just want to get a better understanding as to what is CODA prepared to do and how we can start having some of those upfront conversations. Because once it's done, and then it becomes a CODA thing. And that's not okay for our families either.
Thank you for that. Board Member Simmons and then Mr. Kennedy.
Yes, regarding the state minimums for transportation, does the board have the ability to say, I think about some of our high schools, some like West Broad are right off of a bus line, but others like Briggs are, maybe a 10, 15-minute walk away. Mifflin, yes. Is the board able to say we will provide yellow bus service for this school because it's on, it's not on a bus line, but for this school we are going to go with the CODA bus passes, or are we stuck with a one-size-fits-all?
You can use both. There is no stipulation. It's either you transport 9 through 12 through the legal options that you have, which is yellow bus, 8-passenger vans, commercial vehicles, meaning like our contractors, CODA, and taxi cabs. Those are all legally approved transportation modes within the state.
So I didn't quite understand. So could the board say, for example, or the administration, could the district say, we will provide yellow bus service for students at high school A, but for high school B, we will not?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Then we have to supply it all busing.
But it then,
Anything you do, you have to supply all busing for
Charter non-publics.
non-Columbus City schools.
Yeah.
So if you provide one bus for one school, 9 through 12, you gotta provide busing for all non-Columbus City schools. Okay, so that's what you guys gotta, it's not, it's a big picture. Whatever you do for Columbus City schools, you gotta do for everybody
like
else.
services.
Right, and I'd be interested in learning about, from the charter non-public students we do route, how many of them would run into the one transfer issue, because when I think about, as I review board agenda, frequently there's, just charter non-publics experience the same thing where students come from all across the city. And so I wonder, what, if we could get, not today, not right now, but if we could please have additional information, Dr. Chapman, as to exactly what % of charter non-public students we currently transport would we anticipate would require a transfer, which would mean we would still have to continue transporting them. And then I just wanted, if we could just go back to the recommendation slide one more time, please. In that first bullet point, it says at the next board board meeting. I just want to get a better understanding of what exactly the administration's recommendation to the board is, or to the committee that we recommend to the board, and then the board does it at, it says, for board action during the next board meeting.
So I can take that. Our conversation is really around the sense of urgency, because we have to understand that once a decision is made, we need a runway to implement that decision. So if we're looking to implement anything by August of 26, 27, we can't have that decision in February or March of next year, because we will not be able to implement. And it involves the notification, the communication, the rerouting.
But we haven't, let's pause for a moment, but we haven't selected one of the options. So what's the timeline between now and October for us to select option?
The time, so.
Then how are we gonna?
Hold on. It's great. What we're seeing here is that thought energy, and it's all driven by concern. It's okay. Our timeline, period, Puento, is December 2025. That's our timeline.
And then
December 2025.
my last question, so you're just asking the board to, open the policy?
Correct.
Okay, and then
Yes.
Correct.
I guess I just am skeptical as to, or concerned as to why we would strike the requirement to transport 9 to 12 students before we decide what our solution is. I guess that to me, that process is.
Hold on, wait a minute. The two options that were provided that would give us savings between 55 million and that 20, that would have us at a $21 million reduction.
It's got nothing to do with the options. It's got nothing to do, so respectfully, President Cole, all, when we changed this policy was to force the district to transport everyone from 9 to 12. There was, at the time, there was a consideration to not transport high school students. The board at the time decided, this is what the will of the people at that time, the will of the board, again, we had the money, we want all of them transported. Now, for us to say that that is not a requirement, it does not say that we don't transport them. It says that now we, as a board, as a district, have the option not to have to. This says you have to. This is, we're saying to the administration, we don't know what you're doing, but you better shift money and you better transport everybody from 9 to 12. What they're asking us to do is go back to what we were before, which was you have the option. That does not mean that we do option 1 or 2. That's another discussion. So again, we got to separate those things. It just eliminates the requirement of the administration to have to transport 9 to 12. If they make any other suggestion, that's a discussion.
Thank you for the point of clarification. Now, what I'd like to do, because we are beyond our time. We are beyond our time, and I thank you all for your patience. Please, I thank you all for your patience. We want to get feedback from you all right now about a recommendation moving forward. Is it the interest of our joint committee to move forward either option 1 and 2 for board consideration, or for option 1 or 2? Oh, okay, hold on. Then what are we making a recommendation to the Board of Education?
Just to change the policy.
So we're just with the policy at this point in time? Okay.
Revised
Thank
policy
you, thank you,
600.
thank you, thank
Yeah,
you,
that's it.
thank you.
Not-
It's late for me.
Just number 2.
All right, so is it the will of the committee? Is it the will of the committee to move forward with a recommendation of a policy change, that being 8,600, to transport, or excuse me, not make it mandatory to transport 9th through 12th grade high school students?
And look at options. Yes.
I was going to say.
The motion's on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Who is?
Motion and seconded. Motion by myself, seconded by,
What's the motion?
it was somebody down there said second.
Yeah.
Please say your name.
Give it to them. Say it loud.
I second, yeah, Shawna Burrow.
Motion is to I restate your motion, President
Yes.
Cole. I believe, if I understand you correctly, the motion is to to ask the board to look at revision of policy 8600 such that they would the board would remove the requirement that requires the transportation of students grades 9 through 12. And then what comes after that removal would be up for discussion for the committees and the board.
Can you say just one, to ask the board to do what?
To ask the board to revise policy 8600 to remove the requirement that transportation be provided to all students grades 9 through 12.
Thank you. President Cole, I have a question.
One moment. Can we second, I would like.
That's a
to use that
committee, not a board vote, correct?
Correct.
Right,
Thank
it is committee. This is not
It's
board,
down
this
there.
is committee. And that's, I asked the question to the committee.
So it's down there.
So I'd like to use that language, if we can use that language specifically. Is there a second for that language?
Over there.
It is motioned and seconded.
For now.
For now, who's the second? Say your name loud.
I'll second Martin Davis.
Martin Davis.
Oh, you stole it from her.
All right, we got Martin Davis. All right, okay. Now, it has been motioned and second. There's the floor open for a very quick discussion. What is your question?
At our last joint committee meeting, we discussed, we had a conversation around the realignment policy, and I think the consensus was that we would just suspend that policy at the time we made further realignment decisions. So I guess I'm confused why we're approaching this differently than the other policy. Why wouldn't we just do the policy change at the time we identify if we want to go with option number 1 or 2?
So, thank you for the question. The question at this point is the recommendation made to us by the administration to look specifically at this policy. At this point in time, the whole realignment aspect of this is still under considerable discussion. I promise you, there's some other things that'll be revealed to you that will, I think, illuminate you in a way that helps give you clarity to better equip you in the future as a board member to make a decision about realignment as a whole. But at this point in time, we're prepared to make a decision as a committee about moving forward with policy 86 and the manner in which it was motioned. Is 8600, thank you. Now, if there are no other further questions or discussion, let's call the roll. Let's call the roll. Carl.
Mr. Chair? Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Ms. Singles?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Mr. Mejia? Yes. Ms. Pope? Ms. Price?
Yes.
Ms. Upchurch?
Yes.
Ms. Burrell?
Yes.
Ms. Vera?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Councilman Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Simmons?
Yes.
Dr. Miranda?
Yes.
And Mr. Granger left. So, motion carries.
Thank you. All right. What we will do now is we will motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. If there are no nays, clap it up, everybody. Good job tonight. Good job.